It's a brand new year, or at least it was a month ago, so it's time to go through my entire Blu-ray collection. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place, and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go get some popcorn, go get a drink, because we're gonna be here a while. And let's get started. First up is 47 Meters Down. I actually find both of these movies to just be just fun survival movies. They're dumb. They don't make any sense. They've got all sorts of problems in the storytelling. Wasn't crazy about the false ending on this one. At the same time, it provides the shark escapism that I want. Then we have 300, just a great manly movie about dudes killing other dudes, all while wearing loincloths and looking absolutely chiseled. I'm actually a really big Zack Snyder fan, and this is the movie that really put him on the radar for me. It was like, who is this guy that's so stylized? As well as Gerard Butler. Big fan of this one. Related to that one, 300 Rise of the Empire. I think I've only seen this one 1 or 2 times. It just didn't seem to have that it factor. I mean, it had the look, it had all the violence, the action and everything. But whatever that magic was about the first one that just made it so watchable, I didn't find that quite as much with this film. I picked it up just a couple months back at a gas station. I got a flat tire, went to go fill up my tire, went in to buy a can of Fix-A-Flat, and right above the Fix-A-Flat was this movie for $4. So I had to pick it up, need to rewatch this one. I actually need to watch both of them kind of back to back, have a little double feature. Then we have 500 Days of Summer, a nice little story about relationships and the ups, the downs, how they fall apart, and sometimes that's a good thing. So from director Mark Webb, who did the amazing Spider-Man films, and I think it highlights what he's good at. And what was even good in those films, you see it in this one, is that he's just good with how the chemistry between people and the dynamics there. And that's what worked really well in the Amazing Spider-Man films. Many faults there, but I thought Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, great chemistry. You bought the relationship. That's true this one as well. So if you haven't seen this one, I recommend checking it out. Got American Assassin. I actually happened to have read the book before I picked up the movie for this one. And so normally I'm not the person that's seen the movie first. So I was picking up on all of the things that they changed. They had to simplify the narrative. Great little performance from Michael Keaton as kind of just this tough as nails drill instructor inside of it. Great scene where he's talking about like eating a guy's ear and stuff like that. Straight out of the book. So not a great action thriller, but one, if you like the genre, which I do, you can still have fun with. We got the A-Team from Joe Carnahan. Got a great cast when you got Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper. Never liked this one as much as I thought I would, though. Every time I've rewatched it, it just hasn't clicked with me the way that I should like an A-Team movie. I'm a kid of the 80s. I grew up watching the A-Team, and this movie itself, no, I don't have any hate for it. It just doesn't resonate with me as much as I think it should. Then we've got two Aladdins. So I was the perfect age when the original one came out. I was in the 5th grade, I believe. So I had the cassette tape. I had the original cassette tape because they changed the lyrics to Arabian Nights because it was kind of offensive when it first came out. And so then I had the cassette with that original version of it. And so, I mean, that Disney Renaissance, all those ones kind of grew up on them. And then we got the new one this year, or last year, that, I dug it when it first came out, and it's just kind of, I've only kind of liked it more as time has passed. And they just found a way, it's a story that lends itself to live action pretty well, I think. And so, put all the pieces together, I had a pretty good time with it. Then, the Alien Anthology. This is a great set right here. A lot of these ones, I mean, they're special features, some of them kind of nice or whatever, but this is like full documentary on each of the movies. I mean, walking you through the production, extensive stuff on it. So like, I'm well known on my channel for hating the movie Alien 3. There's fantastic special features about the making of the film, what went wrong, how it went wrong, all of that stuff. And so if you're a fan of this franchise, or even if you just like 1 or 2 of them, you got to check this one out because it like lets you know exactly why we ended up with the movies we got. For the better, for worse, all of it. Great set with great special features. We got double feature of the two Alien vs. Predator films. The first one, I guess I don't really feel guilty about the movies that I like, but kind of like a guilty pleasure type movie. It's all right. And it has some interesting ideas, and it's got a little bit Lovecraftian and sort of what they did. Second one is just unpleasant. It's just not a lot of fun to watch. And the whole thing's just dark. It plays like a slasher film with aliens battling predators, and the human characters are literally like characters in a slasher film, and literally it's just dark the whole time, so you cannot see what's happening. We'll go with Alien Covenant, the last film that we got in the franchise, and I loved half the movie, and the other half really frustrated me because I'm not a big Prometheus person. So all the stuff that was focused on being an Alien prequel, I dug it. When it was that, it was great. I liked the cast, the crew, their dynamic, the first part of it, the last part of it, the middle stuff with Michael Fassbender is playing a flute. Lost me just a little bit. We got Alita Battle Angel, a movie that was a long time in the making. James Cameron almost did it before Avatar, then he was going to do Avatar, and he was going to do Alita, and then obviously he did Avatar. But he still wrote the script for this one. Then Robert Rodriguez was the person that did the directing for it. And he did a bunch of the movies that I watched back in the 90s, great action movies. He's got a good eye for things like that. And so I was pretty excited to pick this one up. I got a version that came with this cute little mini Funko Pop. It was pretty, because it's out of focus, so you can't see it very well. There, I'll put it next to my face. And then my little baby, year and a half old, just tore the top off and destroyed the box for my little baby Alita Funko Pop. So babies, destructive creatures. Then we'll go with a couple, I got three of these. 3 Annabelle movies all in a row, all right next to each other. Weird franchise, or weird spin-off franchise, because the first one's pretty terrible. Second one's pretty good. Third one, pretty good as well, but totally different from the other ones. They're all totally different in the time period they take place, the vibe of them, the cast, everything, with just this doll and the spookiness being the thing tying them together. But yeah, kind of an interesting way to do a trilogy, to have a doll as your lead character and everything else wildly different. Then we have, what do we have here? Oh, we got a steelbook for my version of Aquaman. Yeah, I had fun with this movie. It's dumb, it's campy, it's cheesy, but it's just a adventure that I enjoy going on. They're hamming it up. Some of the dialogue's ridiculous. Most of the dialogue's ridiculous, but that doesn't change the fact that I still enjoy what they gave me. Armageddon, one of my favorite Taco Bell movies of all time. If you're new to my channel, what a Taco Bell movie is it's cinematic junk food. It's cinematic fast food. You know that McDonald's, you know that Taco Bell are not great food, but it doesn't stop you from loving eating it all the time. I eat Taco Bell for lunch every single Sunday, so I call them Taco Bell movies. They're movies that, yeah, I can't really defend the stupidity in them. If someone says, it's just too dumb for me, I'll go, I got you. I'm tracking with you. I still have a blast with this movie. And last one in this little section of my shelf, we have Avatar, a movie that I saw it a few times in the theater, and then I didn't rewatch it until 7, 8 months ago, when when it got passed by Endgame. I was like, oh, I should probably do a video on top grossing movies. So decided to buy this big, gigantic, thick set for it that also has a bajillion special features walking you through everything you can fathom about these movies, the extended cut and everything. I already thought the original cut was long enough, so I just watched the theatrical cut. I don't quite need a full director's cut on this one, but I guess it's nice that I have it. Looks like we're 1/26th of the way through the video, and we're moving along to our B's with Baby Driver, Edgar Wright's last film. Just a fun little heist driver movie that had such a distinct use of music and the way it incorporated with the action as well as the editing. Cool characters, cool cast. What you expect from Edgar Wright doing a film like this. Just a solid, watchable, original film. Then, some of my favorites of all time that I grew up with. Back to the Future, the full set from whenever this came out. But yeah, so 25th Anniversary Trilogy. So I guess this came out almost 10 years ago. That's crazy to think that the 25th anniversary came out 10 years ago for these. But yeah, I mean, the first one's one of my favorite movies of all time. And then the second two, just fond memories, because those are some of those first films I remember being excited about when they came out. Like, wait, a sequel's coming out to Back to the Future. Oh, I can't wait to check that out. So I was in the theater for the second two films in this one. Been watching them my whole life. The first one is in my top 10 of all time. And this set has some great special features. And what do we have? Bad Boys. I actually just talked about all these movies on my channel just a couple weeks back when the new one came out. Surprisingly, this is one of the franchises where it seems like it just keeps getting better and better, because this latest one was really good. But kicked off, nice chemistry between Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, like Téa Leoni, she's in it, and Michael Bay's first film. So it gifted us with Michael Bay. Then we've got Bad Santa. One of these movies, I've only watched it one or two times ever, but if I'm ever in the mood for just a really trashy Christmas night, Bad Santa. If you haven't seen it, it's like designed to be as offensive as is possible, and it succeeds at it. And we have the Blade Trilogy. I'm a huge fan of the Blade Trilogy. Even the third one, that's not a good movie, I have a lot of fun with it. When you talk about like my grading scale, where you have kind of the letter, the number, Blade Trinity is the reason that I do that kind of thing, because I can't defend it. I can't go positive on the letter. It's low on the letter. But I mean, I'm entertained by it. Absolutely I am. You got Ryan Reynolds doing the prototype of Deadpool. You got Jessica Biel having a lot of fun. Got Patton Oswalt. But as a whole, I mean, great. All these movies have great fight choreography. Wesley Snipes is cool as can be as Blade. So really enjoy this one. And each one of them feels a little bit different because they brought a different director in. And we got a big old Blu-ray set for the original Batman Quadrilogy. These are movies I grew up with. Batman 89 is once again, some of the first movies I remember being excited for. Like, I cannot wait to see Batman 89. I had all the trading cards for it, still do. They're actually right there. For all the cards for both movies, Batman and Batman Returns. So, I mean, like, I tracked all the movie news for Batman Returns, and I even dug Batman Forever when it first came out. I was like, this feels different. This is odd. I'm not quite sure what this is about, but I'm having fun with it. And then I was in high school and Batman and Robin came out, and that's where I clicked in my head, this is not good. Well, there's some problems here. So I finally had matured to the point that I could figure out what a bad movie was and knew that. Then a little bit, I guess I put this one here. I wasn't sure if I should put it with The Dark Knight for D's or Batman Begins, start there. So I thought I'd just put it with my other Batman movies. The Dark Knight Trilogy, Nolan's big set. Got a nice one it has like a booklet and everything that comes along with it. Of course, one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Love Nolan's movies, love Batman, put it all together, and I'm your target audience. So, of course, love all these movies. And there's some great special features on the Batman sets that they put out there. I love the stuff with David Goyer, especially talking about where the script kind of came from. And even with they used to have stuff on the fighting style they did with Batman Begins, the Casey fighting method. That stuff's always interesting to me, more so than like on set, like, here's how a pulley works with... I don't care about that stuff, but where did stories come from? How did they come up with the design for how to do the fights? I love that stuff. Then we got Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition. Just actually yesterday, my podcast that debuts in about an hour from when I'm filming this, was talking about this movie with my buddy Griffin. And he asked me if I liked the theatrical cut, and it occurred to me I probably haven't seen the theatrical cut since it was in the theater. But in the theater, I enjoyed the movie enough, so I have to say that I liked it. But I haven't rewatched it to know how good or bad it actually is, since I only watched the director's cut. I've never disliked this movie. I get some of the criticisms. I totally get it if you're like, it's pretty hopeless for a Superman movie or it's cluttered. I get a lot of that. I think it does have value, though. I think it has ambition, and I can appreciate all that. So, and I think Ben Affleck just brings a certain weight to the character that I really enjoy seeing. So I have no hate for that one. Here's one I haven't watched yet. Batman Ninja. Bought this one at Black Friday and heard a bunch of people talking about it. I just haven't been able to sit down to watch it yet. So maybe that's something I need to do and post it somewhere on my social media presence. But still, I picked it up because I knew I wanted to watch it. It was like $6 or something like that. So if I'm going to watch it, might as well pick it up. But that has not happened yet. Then what do we have? We have Blade Runner, The Final Cut. Never been a big fan of Blade Runner. what did I just say? Never been a big fan of Blade Runner. That's what I meant to say, and I think it's on Blade Blubber or something like that. Blade Runner. So, yeah, I've watched, people have been like, no, check out this cut. I've checked out 3 of the cuts or whatever. I don't know how many. I've seen a bunch of different versions. Just a little bit too poetic, artsy for me. I just don't function like that. I like things a little bit more concrete. I mean, production design's fantastic. Love Harrison Ford. There's some cool ideas, but as an experience, not as big of a fan of that one. But the second one, I thought tackled all of that quite a bit better. Also a gorgeous film, also a fantastic cast, tackles those same ideas, and I think did it in a way that communicated more the way that I like to be communicated with. A little bit more excitement to it, and not so just kind of abstract in the poetry and Rutger Hauer giving these monologues and things like that. So I really dug the second one, even though I wasn't so crazy about the first. Another one I've actually watched it is I haven't seen any Blumkamp films. I've not seen District 9, Chappie, Elysium, none of them. And I bought this like 2 years ago, and he just hasn't had a new movie come out yet. And so there hasn't been that window that would be like, all right, right now I should go through all of his movies. So I've already loaded it up in my digital stuff, so I see it all the time. People ask me, hey, what did you think of District 9? I just haven't actually watched them yet, so I can't wait for them to have a new movie, so I have a reason to watch them, rank them, do my whole spiel. Then we got Bohemian Rhapsody. Movie I wasn't blown away by. I thought it was weird it got all the Oscar nominations and stuff that it did. I liked it. I thought it was enjoyable. But Best Picture just seemed weird to me that film was getting that type of buzz surrounding it. But, great lead performance. Of course, Queen music is fantastic. So found this one on sale one day, picked it up. Might have been Black Friday. I don't remember. And then we have Bridesmaids, my personal favorite of Paul Feig's movies. Just thought real funny. And actually heartfelt. It can be super crass at times, but it actually kind of goes into friendship and insecurities and the way we can self-sabotage, a bunch of stuff that kind of hits you on a deeper emotional level while being really funny as well. Moving along, we've got Bumblebee. Probably the best of the Transformers movies. They decided to make it a little bit more character-based, do kind of E.T., except with the Transformer, and it absolutely worked for me. Charming cast. With Haley Steinfeld in the lead, Bumblebee's just such a relatable character while being totally unrelatable in another sense. You got great action, and but booting Michael Bay, kicking him out, suddenly you get the best film of their series. We got Captain Underpants. I haven't actually fully watched this one. My kids have watched it a bazillion times. I've seen parts of it. Never seen this, don't know the subject, the original material or anything like that, so can't really comment on that one too much. Then we have Cars. Don't they have one Cars movie? Looks like I got one Cars movie. The first one, I don't know, this one came out when I was like in my mid-20s. People that grew up watching it seemed to love it, and people that were a little bit older were like, oh, seems like a bit of a dud inside the franchise. It seems to play really well with kids, and therefore when it came out, it played really well with a young age group. And the movies you grew up with, you tend to have a lot more fondness for than people from other ages that didn't grow up with it. So I think it's got some nice elements, but it has some faults as well. And we got Casino Royale. I actually bought a discounted copy of it apparently from a used bookstore. It's my personal favorite Bond film. Daniel Craig's my personal favorite Bond. It's some just fantastic action and humanizes the character. He's not just the womanizer guy, but he seems like an actual character. And I loved that about it. And then, Lachif's just a great villain as well. Then, we'll do kind of 2 of these side by side, a double feature of Mick G. Charlie's Angels movies. My buddy Griffin actually gave these to me. I was in LA and the new movie was about to come out. He got sent these for free from the studio. He was like, hey, do you want these? And I went, I'm about to rank those, so absolutely I will take them. Cheesy, campy, over the top. The first one, I think it kind of works. The second one, I think they just lost their way a little bit, went so far down, a little bit too far down the campy path. But, they were trying to have fun. They had fun making them. And when I'm in the right mood, they can be enjoyable, but certainly not. The first one in particular, it's like so stylized. Every shot seems so intentional in such a weird way, because you wouldn't call this meticulously crafted story, but the shots are meticulously crafted for this distinct style that he was going for. We got Chef from Jon Favreau. I really like Jon Favreau as a director. He's so versatile, and sometimes he does big studio movies, and then he does something like Chef after doing a bunch of big studio movies, and it's super personal. It's all about, it almost seems like he's telling a story about himself and losing his way, because the lead character is a chef that kind of loses his way at this big restaurant and trying to please critics, which Jon Favreau had kind of been doing that with a couple of the movies that he did. So then, he goes back to his roots, the chef does, as well as Jon Favreau doing a smaller story that he stars in, which he started his career as a director with the movie Made, that he wrote and directed. So I just really enjoyed this one. And lots of nice cameos in it. It's like he got all of his friends to act in the movie. So pretty cool. Christmas Story, classic Christmas movie. I grew up watching it. You probably grew up watching it. Funny, quotable, memorable, all of the things that you think it is. Oh, speaking, I guess we'll have a couple Christmas ones here in a row, of course. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Another one I grew up watching. My wife didn't. She doesn't like the vacation movies because she doesn't really like Clark, the character, because he's has his ways where he's always flirting with women. She's not crazy about them. So even though I own this one, I haven't convinced my wife to watch it in a couple of years since I purchased this. But this year, 2020, will be the year we get back to watching that one and show it to the kids. Then we got Christopher Robin, an interesting update on Winnie the Pooh that is so true to so many elements of Winnie the Pooh. I just don't know. I think it's just too long, I think, for the format, because I think it's true to the wordplay. It's an interesting idea to do the hook treatment with Christopher Robin. But the Winnie the Pooh movies were like an hour and 10 minutes long. So when you go 30, 40 minutes longer, that it just feels too dragged out, or at least did for me, at least. Got Cinderella. Speaking of Disney live action remakes, adaptations, things like that, this is one of my personal favorites. I just thought the story lent itself to someone like Kenneth Branagh coming in and just bringing the gravitas that he brings to a story like that. And it just really paid off. And we'll go with the full Chucky saga, from this cool little box set thing that I got right here to the brand new movie. Actually, I think this is another one that Griffin gave me when I was out there in LA, and he's like, hey, I got gifts from the studio. Do you want them? I will take Child's Play as well. So I didn't necessarily grow up watching these. Kind of more of the Jason movies were the ones I watched the most, kind of growing up late at night on cable and stuff like that. But I was aware of them, and so I didn't watch through the whole thing until I think a year or two ago, or 2 years ago, whenever I first ranked them. It's such an odd franchise that if you didn't experience it as it kind of came out and got used to the adjustments and the transitions in tone, you just experience it all in kind of 2 weeks of hammer just flying through it. It's a weird franchise for that reason, but a lot of them I really enjoyed. A few of them I see not so much, but I actually dug the remake. I think they might have shot themselves in the foot by calling it Child's Play, though, because I thought they had enough of fresh newness that if you just said a movie in the vein of Child's Play, something like that, I think it might have been better received, because you don't alienate all the Brad Dourif fans and fans of the creator guy that wrote all the previous ones and directed a few of the later ones. I think you alienated them, and by with the direction they took, and it's not about voodoo, it's robotics. But I thought they had some interesting ideas, and it's actually about friendship. Much more so than any of the other ones. It's actually about this doll trying to be friends with Andy, which I thought was a nice little spin on things. I dropped my phone on the floor. Then we got Coco, great little Pixar film about music, about family, about different cultures, that it's just so vibrantly brought to life. And just in true Pixar fashion, they did something different from what they've done before, but it had all the magic that you come to love from a Pixar movie. Oh, we got Con Air. I love Con Air. Such a classic film, that classic for action fans, that I need to watch with my mom. Actually, for Christmas, what my mom got for present from someone was 2 pillows, and the pillows are like kind of a picture of with that glitter style to it, of Nicolas Cage in this movie with his long hair when he gets off the bus and he's kind of like throwing it back in the wind, breathing fresh air for the first time in years. My mother received that for Christmas, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, or whatever that was. But yeah, just a fun, dumb action movie that I absolutely love. Then we got couple of Conjuring movies. I really enjoyed these films as horror movies that kind of changed the direction that the genre was going this decade. That they just did a nice job of giving us characters we cared about with the Warrens, and then just doing practical effects and making you feel like you are in a place and a time. They don't, like, sometimes movies are set in the past, but it's kind of superficial. Even a lot of the other movies in the Conjuring universe feel that way. But you feel like you've gone to the past when it comes to the main two films, the ones specifically from James Wan. We got Copland, a movie from James Mangold of Ford vs. Ferrari Logan fame. And I remember this movie from way back in the day because I'm a big Stallone fan. So when this one came out, it was like the first huge that Stallone had decided to gain 40 pounds of fat to play this role. If you haven't seen this one, highly recommend checking out because it's James Mangold kind of drama, very different type of character for Stallone. And then you got Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, fantastic cast doing kind of this underworld kind of crime movie in this suburb of New York City. And it's a land of cops where cops live out because they can't afford to live in New York City, and the truth behind where it came from. We got Cowboys vs. Aliens. Going back to the movie Chef, Jon Favreau directed Iron Man 2. Was well received as he probably would have liked. Does Cowboys vs. Aliens also not as well received? And that's where he kind of went back and was like, all right, I'm going to do something smaller, and he went and did Chef. But say it's Cowboys vs. Aliens. I don't know, just a movie that's too dull for what it should be. I mean, you got Indiana Jones and James Bond as cowboys battling aliens from the director of Iron Man. It should be more fun than it is. And that's kind of the problem with this one. I don't think it's terrible. It's not embarrassing. I don't think so at all. It's just not nearly as interesting, vibrant. It doesn't pop. It's like, okay, that just happened. I did just see that movie, and now I've forgotten about it. Final one in this section is Crawl, the alligator movie that came out about 6 months ago about a big gigantic storm happening and father and daughter getting stuck in the crawl space with a bunch of alligators trying to eat them. Real just nice survival film. Works well as this movie about people just trying to survive and working through their differences throughout the process of it. I don't know, just it's not big and flashy. It's efficient at what it's going for, and it works. Moving along, we've got Crazy Stupid Love, a delightful film with a fantastic cast about relationships, them coming together, falling apart, the good, the bad, the ugly, a nice little twist inside of it, some great chemistry between most of the leads, some people behaving badly, some people learning to stop behaving badly, all kinds of stuff, funny, charming, all kinds of things that I love from movies like this one. Then we got Crazy Rich Asians. Apparently, movies with crazy tend to be movies of the romantic comedy nature. I really dug this movie. What it did really nicely was it has all the breakups and the beats that you're supposed to have in a rom-com, but it doesn't get to them through the normal miscommunications that they have. Normally, there's some sort of high concept thing that brings people together. No, what makes this one work and the story have a little bit more depth to it is that it's about cultural differences and way people are perceived. And I think that just has a lot more weight to it than a fabricated situation. It's actual real life behavior and things that in real life cause relationships to fall apart, not people placing ridiculous bets and things like that you get in a lot of these movies. So I really dug it. Love the two leads in it. This gets to the first Henry Golding movie that I ever saw. And I mean, he's just absolutely just knocking it out of the park, killing it, and on the rise these days. So very excited about that. Then we have Creed. I actually had to buy a new copy of this one because I don't know what I lost the case for my first one and the disc was kind of thrown around, scratched up. So wanted to make sure I had a good copy of it for whenever I'm in the mood to watch Creed. So that's why I have a version that's not quite open yet. Not quite open. It's not opened yet because it's a replacement copy, but I love the Rocky franchise. When they announced this movie, I was as nervous as anyone. And then, I mean, it absolutely lived up to the franchise, found a way to give more legitimacy legitimacy to a pretty ridiculous movie in Rocky IV, and we got maybe the best Stallone performance that we've ever seen. We got Creed 2 right after that one, and once again, solid follow-up to the first Creed, gave even more legitimacy to Rocky IV, an insanely ridiculous, over-the-top 1980s film. We get to see, even the stuff they did with the Drago family. They gave them more depth, more of a history, more tragic characters than what they were before, as opposed to just, kind of an evil Russian. And now we can understand why he was the way that he was, and that took a toll on him as well. So maybe not as good as the first Creed, but not everything has to be the best. And so I thought it was a great follow-up to the first Creed. And that's all I really expect from sequels, not to be better. Got another movie in the Conjuring universe, The Curse of La Llorona. This is one I picked up to complete my Conjuring set, and it was Black Friday, so it was super cheap. The movie itself, it's all right. It's pretty slow the first 2/3 of the film. Typical haunted house jump scare type stuff. Linda Cardellini is, of course, great to see on screen, and she's watchable, but nothing particularly distinct about it. Till the last act, when Raymond Cruz comes in, they use Tuco on Breaking Bad as this shaman. And as soon as he's there, the movie gets a lot better because he's really funny. He just has this dry, deadpan sense of humor, and everything that he said landed. At least in the theater I was in, was just cracking up. Now, they were cracking up inappropriately throughout the movie, so maybe I misjudged things. Maybe it was just in contrast to how bland the first two acts were. It made the third act just seem more interesting than it was, but it was really funny in that one. Then we have Daredevil, a movie that I've never hated the way other people do. I've always kind of dug it. How would I score it if I had to, it's not like, yeah, I love it. It's not that, but it's doing something like this where most people are like, oh, it's one of the worst movies ever made. It's campy. It's in an era when they were still figuring out how to do movies that were fun, true to the comics, but not too over the top and goofy. It's got Bullseye with a bullseye in its forehead. It's got this fight in a playground that's just goofy. There's some other stuff in there that I think is actually quite good. And there's two different cuts of it. The director's cut's 20, 30 minutes longer. It has a whole subplot about Matt Murdock as this lawyer for Hell's Kitchen, trying to help as a lawyer as well as help at night as the superhero. When I think Coolio is the client or something like that, and it ties into the plot with Kingpin. There's actually quite a bit better and adds some depth in it. So if you haven't seen the director's cut, maybe give it a second try with the director's cut, just knowing there's definitely some campy scenes there. Then we got Date Night. I'm big fan of Steve Carell. Love The Office. Big fan of Tina Fey. So put them in a movie where they're on kind of this having a date night, and then they find themselves on the run from these people trying to kill them and claiming to be stuff. Just a little bit hijinks. Not as good as it should be. Doesn't change the fact that it's still a fun type setup, and it's nice to see them doing something like that. We got Death Wish, the remake from a year or two ago, or just 2 years ago now. Time is flying by. I didn't love it, but it's a type of movie that's very watchable for me. I love revenge films like this. And so the first Death Wish, classic revenge film with something, a little bit of a message inside of it. This one's a little bit more just kind of schlock revenge porn, but I enjoy watching that sort of thing, so it worked well enough for me. And seeing Bruce Willis not totally phoning in it, he's not doing great Bruce Willis or anything like that. He's not trying to win any awards here or anything, but he wasn't sleepwalking through the film either. And just, seeing him in a movie where he's shooting people in the face, I enjoy watching Bruce Willis do that. Then we have Demolition Man, a movie I didn't have on Blu-ray, so I had to pick it up. I haven't watched it yet, but I saw it for $5-6 at Best Buy. I was like, oh, I need that in my collection. If you haven't seen Demolition Man, it's one of these, I don't know if you can call it underrated because everyone that talks about it praises it, but it's also not, it feels like it's not quite in that A-list category of movies that people talk about. When you think Stallone, of course, you think Rocky, Rambo, but anyone that knows Stallone's career, anyone that knows action movies, raves about this movie. There's all these quotable little things because it's set in the future, but he's from in the early 90s and the culture's changed. So does this fish out of water stuff, Taco Bell or Pizza Hut, depending on where you watch the movie. Because I guess Taco Bell isn't prominent in Europe, I think, so they replaced Taco Bell with Pizza Hut and the European cut or something like that. But just a bunch of these like little jokes. It's really funny times. You got a young Wesley Snipes, not that young, but Wesley Snipes in it as the villain. Sandra Bullock, actually, she is a young Sandra Bullock in it. So definitely check that one out if you haven't seen it. And we'll just grab a whole bunch of these not Minions, Despicable Me movies, the whole trilogy right there. They're all right. I'm not bonkers for the Despicable Me movies. They're kind of funny, and there's some nice characters, but I don't feel like any of them have a solid story. They're much more about the hijinks, the minions being cute, than they are about having a tightly woven story. It just feels like sometimes they're also like trying to do all these different things and juggle all these stories and plot lines, then they don't always come together particularly well. Then we have the Die Hard collection. You got at least one true classic, at least one fantastic sequel, one sequel that's pretty good, or a couple sequels I would say are pretty good, and then one sequel that is dreadful. Of course, the first one is just a classic. Third one, Died with a Vengeance. Saw that one in the theater, and absolutely loved it. I think the second one's actually quite good too. Little bit of a rehash vibe to it in certain senses, but I think still a very solid entry in the franchise. I really like the fourth one too. It's drops some of the tonal stuff. It loses its way a little bit, goes kind of just into over the top zone. Goes quite a bit into the over the top zone, but I think it works as just an action movie. And then the fifth one I just think is pretty dreadful. That is a sleepwalking Bruce Willis in a movie called Die Hard, but does not feel like Die Hard. There's just no heart, soul, anything. It's just, let's try and make some money from putting Die Hard in the title. We got Dread, a movie that didn't do great at the box office, but everyone that has seen it thinks that it's great. And I'm one of those people that have seen it, and I think it's great. Carl Urban is just like so perfect as the character, just gruff, intense, very cool, stylized action. If you like action movie and haven't seen that one, check it out. Ironically, it came out, has basically kind of the same plot as the movie The Raid, different continents, same year they came out. It's not like one copied the other, but if you want to see The Raid, say this plotline about people going into a building, having to go up and down and survive in the future with machine guns, check out Dread. If you want it with martial arts, check out The Raid. Then Django Unchained, one of Quentin Tarantino's, well, all of his movies are pretty well classics because Tarantino has just one of those filmographies that even his lesser known movies, they're still interesting and classic in their own way as just Quentin Tarantino films. But his Western revenge film, as always, great characters, great moments, and a wild, insane, over-the-top finale that is quite wonderful. Got Elektra, one I picked up because it was dirt cheap when I found it. Just trying to have my complete Marvel collection. This is a spin-off from the Daredevil movie that people didn't like very much, and they went, hey, people didn't like that one much. Let's make something that's even worse and less interesting. So another one, I don't think it's, it's a movie about an assassin with a heart, kind of generic kind of plot in that regard. And it has like just the wrong mix of elements to it, or of the special of mystical elements. So pretty bland and generic. We got Enchanted. I really like this movie. Just they tried to, what if you took a Disney princess, brought her to the real world, and did a fish out of water comedy, doing that while at the same time doing a Disney princess movie, and the mix just worked. Amy Adams is just terrific. Everyone's terrific in it, actually. Amy Adams as this Disney princess that's in New York City. It's what is going on? Just does that so well. James Marsden as the Prince Charming trying to woo her. And then Patrick Dempsey as this guy that's become cynical towards love. All of it just works together nicely. And it has some great music inside of it, too. Elf. One of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. Top 3, maybe number 1. I don't know. I don't like to pick favorites, but fantastic. One of Will Ferrell's best, that just such a great character in Buddy the Elf, and they just found a way to find every little joke in each sequence that is funny, it's quotable, and it's something that I can laugh out loud at, as well as my little kids who are all under the age of 10. And I mean, when they were 3, when they're 2, they were laughing out loud at the same time with me. Then we got Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's World War II film. And not really divisive, but some people just praised it way up here, like, one of the best movies of the year, and some people are like, it's not quite that, the characters are too thin. I'm much closer to like this one up here. I really dug what Nolan did with it, and in true Nolan fashion, he always finds a way to tell his stories in a distinct, different way. He doesn't do it like everyone else, and so then he tells it with this kind of 3 different timelines, all kind of converging together. Very cool way to tell a story that kept this urgency and momentum to the film. Then we have Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, whatever dumb title they wanted to go with. I love this movie. So rewatchable. Even though it's a movie that repeats itself, it's still highly rewatchable. It's so much more fun than it seemed like it would be. Has more heart to it. So a movie that the trailers absolutely did not do it justice, and one that I've watched many times on repeat. Quick update on this video. We've made it through 4 of these different boxes, and we are now moving down to the second level, the biggest, the longest level. It's twice the size of the one that we just finished, which means that we are like 25% of the way through this video. Moving along, The Equalizer 2. Apparently I don't have The Equalizer, but I have the second one, because it was on sale for Black Friday, and this one has The Mandalorian inside of it, so that's a fun little take. I like Antoine Fuqua, action films, Denzel Washington is always fun to watch, so this one is right up my alley. We got Aragon, never read the book, watched the movie actually on a cruise, was married for like a year or something like that, and then they had like 3 movies they cycled through. One of them was Aragon, so watched it there. It was on super duper sale when Blockbuster was going out of business, so we picked it up and haven't watched it in like 10 years. And we got Ex Machina. I haven't watched it yet. And people keep telling me it's fantastic. That's why I picked it up. Even picked it up on 4K because it was on sale. Need to watch it, just haven't made the time to sit down and make that happen yet. Then let's go with a whole expendable set of movies right here. As I've said many times in this video, I love action movies. I love all the stars of all those action movies. Put them all together, and it's not quite as good as you would think it would be, but still fun to watch them do their thing. And tonally, they can be in different places at different times, but works well enough for me. Then, one of these days, I really want to rank the Evil Dead movies, so picked up this double package of the first and second movies in preparation for when that happens. It just hasn't happened yet. It's like one of those ones that there's nothing urgent to do it, but I just really want to do it. So hopefully soon enough, along those same lines, got the remake right there. I've only seen this one time, so I'm kind of interested to check it again. Like the first one, the second one, Army of Darkness, I've seen them many times, but this one I've only seen once. So whenever that happens, hopefully sooner rather than later, you'll know my thoughts on all of that. Then we got Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's like a movie that is half this really fun Harry Potter spinoff type film, and then half like way too much other stuff. So when it's like this whimsical movie about creatures, it's pretty cool. When it's about Credence and whatever that stuff was about, and child abuse, just the tones just don't go together. Like, hey, look, large creatures, child abuse. Okay, not sure what you thought you were making there, but it was uncomfortable what you did make. We got a double feature of the Fantastic Four movies from about 15 years ago. They're harmless. They're not particularly good. They're not particularly awful either. Feel a little bit like made-for-TV movies, actually, that just came out at the wrong time or something like that. That is big screen movies that just feel small scale, doesn't quite work. If you take them as, if they came out as like a TV pilot for a Fantastic Four movie now, I think it'd probably be received much better than this was. Then, speaking of Fantastic Four and steelbooks, one of my few steelbooks, Fan Four Stick. One of the odder stories in recent memory of a blockbuster that went totally wrong somewhere along the way, and studio interference with a director that apparently might have had a meltdown or something like that led to this very bizarre thing to exist. The director disowned it. Josh Trank, before it even came out, tweeted out, hey, the movie I wanted to make was fantastic. Not this one. Or it was fantastic a year ago. I guess that's what he said. It's like, yeah, a year ago there was a fantastic movie. this is not that movie. Then we got the 8-movie Fast and the Furious Blu-ray collection. These are movies that as time passed, they seem to got better or more significant, because the first one was like, Point Break, remake, whatever. And then the second one was like, this is goofy. Forgot about the third one. Somehow, with the 5th movie, and over 10 years into it, they got really interesting and way better and became much more of a cultural event. Strange franchise. Somehow they managed to pull off getting better as they went along, or whatever that was. We got another one coming out soon. We got a 4K of Hobbs and Shaw. Perfect example. One of my favorites in the franchise was the spinoff that came out last year, that somehow this series that started about street racers doing heists turned into a full-blown spy franchise with cyber-enhanced Idris Elba. Okay. A Few Good Men. I really dig this movie. Based off of Aaron Sorkin play and Aaron Sorkin screenplay. And I just think that it's one of Tom Cruise's best non-spy action type movies. Great performance for him. And just exploring characters, trial. Also one of the first dramas that I saw in the theater, and I was like, wow, movies can be good that don't just have explosions. This is amazing. Yeah, Fighting with My Family, one of my favorite movies of last year. Wasn't on my radar at all. I don't follow professional wrestling, didn't know the lead person that it's based off of at all, and just really dug the movie. It worked as a sports film, as a drama, as a comedy, and all of it did it just a little bit different. Didn't play into your expectations, and this is the movie that introduced me to Florence Pugh, who had quite the year last year of doing a whole bunch of different things and kind of growing her resume and her credibility through all of it. We got Fight Club, the David Fincher nihilism film, just jam-packed with style, memorable lines, and it's one of these movies that every dude my age was super duper into 20 years ago. So anytime we'd get together, let's watch Fight Club again, and let's do a Fight Club. Yeah, we weren't actually as anarchist as we thought we were at the time. Final Destination, one of these horror movies, Final Destination, multiple times in a row. The whole franchise right there. One of these series that had a nice little concept, probably went on a little bit too long, milked it a little bit too much, had some awful ones, had some that kind of returned to form at the end there just a little bit, but at its best, had some fun, clever kills, and a little bit of creativity in the way that it used kind of the concept. And then some that were just super bland. Finding Nemo, a movie I didn't watch until I was already a parent. I was in my 30s. I was 30 years old, 31 years old when I first watched this movie. So I was not the target age, but that actually works nicely for this film because it's more about parenting. Marlin is more the character that needs to change in the film than Nemo is. Nemo's just trying to get found. Marlin needs to grow and change. So it's a movie about parenting. So if you watch it as a new parent, it hits you really hard, even though on the surface level, you think it's about, a little movie for children. It's about a lot more than that. Then we have The Firm, another one of these movies that was some of my early adult drama type films that I was into. Back in the day, John Grisham books were just getting translated into films left and right. All of them were hits. All of them were pretty good. The Firm being one of those ones, and Tom Cruise being at the top of the world at the time. Everybody went to go see it. It's interesting to think about how big of a hit this was. Now, if it came out now, it wouldn't be a blip on the radar. But the film industry's changed so much that, A Few Good Men, when I was growing up, those would be big hit movies that everyone would go see. And it just, the industry just does not work like that anymore, which it is what it is. A lot of that stuff's kind of transitioned over to television, but I wish that, we'd get more real high quality thriller type films. Moving along, we've got First Man from Damien Chazelle. Of his movies, this is easily my least favorite, but I love the fact that he keeps telling different stories about people aiming for greatness. That's interesting to me, his obsession with people pursuing greatness. And sometimes he's made great movies in the process of doing that. Other times he's made some that were a little bit more lackluster to me. But they're all exploring similar themes, and that's pretty cool to me. Then we have First Reformed. I haven't watched this movie yet. Got sent to by one of my fans. Got it in some fan mail, and I just haven't had the time to sit down to watch it. I've heard from a bunch of people I need to check it out. The problem I run into, it's interesting. All I do is watch movies all day long and talk about movies, but because I'm doing so much prep for future rankings, that ends up dictating so much of what I watch. And so I don't have as much wiggle room as you would think I would have to watch things kind of randomly. So I need to find the time to sit down for a couple of these that people have sent me and check them out, because obviously someone took the time to buy me something, mail it to me. I need to do a better job of honoring that, and unfortunately I haven't checked it out yet. Then we have The Flash, a Lego movie. I've got a son that's into Lego superheroes, all that fun stuff, so I watch a lot of the direct-to-video Lego movies, and they're all kind of fun. They're all have a nice kind of charming, whimsical nature to them. Nothing super memorable, but kind of fun. For Christmas is a movie most people hate that for whatever reason my wife and I have always kind of had fun with. Probably because we like Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn, and then all the supporting cast. You have Jon Favreau acting in it, and Robert Duvall, and just so many familiar faces in the supporting cast on this one. So maybe that helps. It's kind of a mean-spirited film, not very Christmas-y. The lead characters aren't very likable, but for whatever reason, we watch that movie every single Christmas. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, a movie that I never liked all that much. It's another one that I picked up because Blockbuster was going out of business. So I decided to pick it up because it was cheap. It was on sale. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I watched it. Maybe we need to give it another try. Other people seem to like it a lot more than I did. And I think since we last watched it, my wife has become obsessed with Veronica Mars. And then the whole Frozen thing happened. So maybe it would work a little bit better now if we rewatched it. Then our whole Friday the 13th set. These are the slasher films I grew up with. They'd be on TNT. They'd be on TBS late at night. And after my mom would go to bed, I'd sneak in to watch them and check them out. I really dug the remake that they did. Some people didn't like it. I never fully understood why. I don't know. Maybe it's horror purists or things like that. But I don't. Given how kind of goofy at times the original ones went, it just seemed like they went for entertainment value with the remake. And I appreciate it if you go for entertainment value. But yeah, it's a franchise that certainly gets bizarre as it goes along. And especially Jason Goes to Hell and his soul or whatever transitions to people, does some odd stuff, but that's classic slasher movie to me, of teenagers, camp counselors go to camp and do drugs, do each other, and then get killed for it by Jason Voorhees and occasionally his mother. Galaxy Quest, great sci-fi comedy. If you haven't seen this one, you got to check out Galaxy Quest. Even if you're not a Star Trek fan, you got to check this one out. My wife, whenever we first watched it, she's not a Star Trek fan, didn't understand the fandom side to it, loved the movie because it just works in and of itself. It's funny and has great characters. And then beyond that, if you're a Star Trek fan, if you're into cons and stuff like that, it's just a love letter to the fans. So I was one of the people, I saw it back in the theater back in the day because I went to Star Trek conventions, love Star Trek, and it's just such a pleasant surprise. Get Out, Jordan Peele's first movie, and just does a great job of working as kind of a commentary, comedy, horror film, thriller, modern day Twilight Zone, great performances, distinct style to it, just kind of hits on every note that it's going for. Get Smart. Another blockbuster pickup that my wife and I have. I probably need to get I wonder if there's a better version of this out there now, since this one is falling apart. Wait, oh no, that's like the side movie. You see me discover stuff. It's falling apart. So I probably need to pick up a better copy of this one, since my wife and I thoroughly enjoy Steve Carell. This is the movie that introduced us really to The Office, because we went and saw this, really dug it. And then we decided to go and check out the TV show he was on, The Office, and we haven't stopped rewatching The Office since then. Also, it's one of these movies that's interesting because you think about it for Anne Hathaway, Steve Carell, but The Rock is in it. The Rock is a character, like a major character inside of it. A bunch of other people are too. And he just wasn't quite the A-lister that he was yet, so he did Get Smart, and he was a side character in it, which is just really interesting how things have changed over the 10 years since the movie came out. Then we got Ghostbusters 1 and 2 in this kind of collector's package with booklet inside of it and everything. I grew up watching these two movies, the animated series. This stuff has always meant so much to me. And the original, I think, just one of the funniest movies ever of all time. Distinct, unique type of story. Great concept that works as a comedy, works as a ghost movie, and the whole package just delivers. Got Ghost Rider 1 and 2. We got both of them. Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. I've only watched Spirit of Vengeance one time, I guess a year and a half ago. And it's both as bad as I heard it was, and in other ways, a lot more enjoyable than I thought it would be. But, these movies, it's like they couldn't figure out the tone. And even though they were far enough into the world of comic book movies that other people were figuring out, that for whatever reason, these ones, they just dropped the ball on the tone. And so they're just weird, goofy, oddball things. Then we have Glass, the third movie in the Unbreakable trilogy. Unbreakable is one of my favorite movies of all time. After nearly 20 years, we got David Dunn returning, and the movie, like many M. Night Shyamalan films over the last 15 years, doesn't quite live up to the potential. I'll just say that. Then we got a couple of Godzilla films. I've actually really dug these movies for what they are. Second one certainly gets pretty bonkers with the characters and some of the things they do. Maybe this first one needed more Godzilla in it. In general, though, they deliver all the mayhem carnage that I want with 21st century special effects and spectacle. Gnomeo and Juliet. This is one that when we were in Denver visiting my brother, they went out to buy a movie for the kids to watch and bought this Blu-ray, even though they didn't own a Blu-ray player. So they gave it to us since we had a Blu-ray player, and I've never watched it. So there's my story about a movie that I haven't seen. Then I got Gone Girl. I haven't opened this one yet. I need to rewatch. I need to rank the Fincher movies. So I'm excited for whenever he has his next movie so I can watch all those movies, rank them. So I picked this one up in anticipation of it. This one was a fun one to watch because it was also on sale for $7 or $6. I know how money works. I know how, I know how the $5.99 is $6, not $7. So anyway, this is like fancy packaging with a book inside of it and everything. My wife had read the book before we saw the movie. So whenever we finally watched the movie, whatever twists and turns would happen, she would go and look at me. So the experience of watching this one was certainly enhanced because it was like, I would be watching with having the normal experience of like, wait, what's about to happen here? And then I would be like, wait, something's definitely about to happen because she is freaking out. And some of that was the twists and turns. Other times when the girl decides to do some of the crazy stuff to like as part of what's going on in it, wifey was able to hint me that I was about to see something horrifying, and it was horrifying. The Greatest Showman. Speaking of my wife, went to go see this one the week it came out. And my wife was like, I guess I kind of dug that. Kind of like the music. I like to get the soundtrack. So she gets the soundtrack, and she doesn't stop listening to it. The next week, she's like, I'm going to take my friend to go see it. I was like, oh, I guess you liked it. She goes, yeah, I guess I did like it a little bit more than I initially thought. The next week, she goes to see it again. And then she sees it the next week again. Every week, she took a different friend, introduced everyone that she could to this movie. And then late at night, if, I've fallen asleep, what does she put on? She puts on The Greatest Showman. And then last June, when Hugh Jackman was doing his kind of world tour of being Singing Man, we went to go see him in Houston. That was really cool. That was a fun show. Hugh Jackman is the true Greatest Showman. The Guardian. There's a whole backstory on this movie. So the first movie that my wife and I watched after getting married. So, got married, and then that night we were leaving town the next day, so stayed at a hotel. And in the hotel, the movie that they were playing was The Guardian. So if you're wondering what did I do on my honeymoon, I don't know what other people do on theirs, but I watched The Guardian. That's what we did. Then the next day we went to, and I guess I'll tell this in a little bit as well, but next day we went to the theater to go watch Rocky Balboa because it had come out that weekend. And so then what did I do on my honeymoon? I watched The Guardian, and then I watched Rocky Balboa. Last one in this set, the Halloween collection, the massive 10-disc version with all the movies other than the one that came out a year and a half ago in this new series, or not new series, I guess it's a continuation. This splintered timeline that ignores all the sequels, or ignores all the sequels and does their own version of them. It's one of these franchises that I watched the first movie many times back in the day because I'm a John Carpenter fan, but I hadn't really watched any of the sequels until 2 or 3 years ago. So this was kind of fun to have one of these franchises that I got to get into as movie critic guy and experience them for the first time, and the highs, the lows, and learn to appreciate them through the eyes of some of my friends and some stuff like that. So this was a real treat for me to get to buy this collection and watch through them. Along those same lines, we have Halloween, the continuation, requel as we'll call it, as it's a sequel. It's kind of a reboot. It ignored a whole bunch of stuff along the way. I 80% really enjoyed this film and dug what they were going for, and then there's just some choices they made that I was not crazy about. By the way, there was actually an hour skip between me talking about the other Halloween movies and me talking about this one. I had to go pick up my kids from school and post the first episode of my podcast. It went live at the hour break right after that last section. So if you were wondering what just happened, an hour passed in my life, and it was only a moment for you. But anyway, we got the next one in this little continuation coming later this year. I'm pretty excited about it. I guess the first test screening was recently. I tried to avoid all the stuff about it because I don't like to jump into too much of that kind of rumor mill type stuff. Anyway, next we have The Hangover. The first one I thought was just a nice fresh comedy. Picked this one up for $3 at a half-priced bookstore. But nice fresh comedy. Before Bradley Cooper and Zach Galifianakis had become more mainstream and well-known, they did this one, and I just think it worked. And Todd Phillips, Todd Phillips was like a comedy director that had quite prominent at the time, and now he's like getting nominated for Oscars for The Joker. That who knew that part of the process to getting to the Oscars was The Hangover. What do we have here happening? Excuse me. Very middle of his career M. Night Shyamalan film. There's some ideas in it that are kind of interesting, and then so many moments that are just baffling in how laugh out loud they are, from dialogue, performances, special effects. There's scenes that just play out so literally right in front of you that just it's unbelievable that that's what he actually went for and decided to do. We've got Happy Death Day to You. I'm pretty sure I have the first Happy Death Day. Maybe I just don't have it digital. I think I only have it on digital, but my wife loves these movies. She doesn't do horror films, so they're just the right amount of scares, people getting killed, but mostly about humor and time loops. That she loves these ones, and frequently I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and she's just sitting there watching one of the Happy Death Day movies. That's the sort of thing she does. Speaking of movies that when I wake up in the middle of the night, my wife might be watching, the Harry Potter films. The Harry Potter films. I'm not a big Harry Potter person myself. No hate, nothing like that. Just for whatever reason, Star Wars clicks with me, MCU clicks with me, Superman, Batman click with me, but I've never been one that's been into Harry Potter the way that many of you are, can respect the world building, some of the directing, storytelling, of course, John Williams' score, fantastic, but I'm not the fanatic that many of you are. The Hateful Eight, Quentin Tarantino's other Western that plays kind of like a play. It's very a very small scale about a stagecoach coming into this little inn. It goes on for a really long time considering how small scale it is. It's a film that I feel like legitimately you could cut an hour out of it. It would probably be a better film, but other people love the fact that it was so deliberately paced. I thought there's a lot of great things about this. There's just way too much of everything here. Then we have The Heat. I don't know, for me, one of the more forgettable Paul Feig films. Some people really dug it. Not me. I didn't find it terribly funny. It's kind of doing the buddy cop thing, but I didn't think it did it all that well. It didn't kind of play into it as much as I would have liked. There's not as much action as you think from a buddy cop film. But speaking of buddy action films, The Hitman's Bodyguard. It's enjoyable enough, very forgettable. Nothing that's, sticks out, makes it pop, other than the fact that it's just jam-packed with actors that just ooze charisma and are fun to watch. So when you take two people as mouthy and energetic and charismatic as Samuel L. Jackson and Ryan Reynolds and put them together, that's watchable for me. And it's an action movie. Watchable for me. Salma Hayek has some nice standout sequences in it. And the rest of the cast is a lot of fun too. Not great filmmaking, but certainly something that I've enjoyed. Then we have Home Alone 1 and 2, the Christmas classics. I was the perfect age for both of these, actually. I mean, Macaulay Culkin's about a year older than me, so by the time the movie comes out, I'm the age of Kevin in the theater when these ones came out. So, such a huge part of my childhood, and now I have kids of my own, and they love these movies, and they're a little confused by the later ones, because even to my 5-year-old daughter, she knows Kevin, Macaulay Culkin, and that there was just something special about him as a child actor that even a 5-year-old can spot that it factor that he had. How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2. I think I have the third one. I think I got it for Black Friday, so I'm not quite sure where that one is. But it's a great trilogy of movies. I was very late to the party on these ones. I didn't go see the first one when it first came out. And then, eventually I had kids and kind of watched them in the background. And then there's the TV show on Netflix that my kids kind of watch on loop. So I had kind of seen all of it, but I hadn't watched it until kind of had the channel and started trying to play catch up. And there's some really neat stuff in there. Just the score's fantastic right off the bat. There's swooping adventures, and then they're about family, friendship, and have some really nice, deep emotions to them. Moving right along, we have Ang Lee's Hulk, a awfully pretentious movie about a raging Hulk monster. It tried to make all these references about anger and stuff like that, and it just doesn't really work. He tried some clever things with the way it tries to visualize the comic aspect and transition using comic-y type things, some ways explosions happen and stuff like that. There was some creativity. It just doesn't really work. Then what do we have? The Hunger Games Catching Fire. This is my favorite of the Hunger Games movies. I thought it's the one that best captured what I enjoyed about the franchise with the characters, the world building, and then actually having victories. I like victory. If you're going to have evil empires, I want to see them defeated and not just bittersweet victories. So I dug that one. Then we have Independence Day 1 and 2. I grew up with the first one, or didn't grow up with it. I guess it came out when I would be been in high school, going into high school. So in those formative years where I'm developing my taste in movies, get the first one right as Will Smith is becoming the legend that we know him as. And this was a big part of that process. And then the next year we got Men in Black. And so then we got the sequel without Will Smith and without the charm that made the original work. It's bigger, the special effects are better, but the end result is bizarre. Some of the stuff that they did with that movie. I didn't hate it like a lot of people. It's actually one of the first movies I reviewed on Sean Chandler Talks About whenever I first started. And so if you want to see an early review from me in the official Sean Chandler Talks About banner, one of them is Independence Day Resurgence. But, like I said, not great. Not awful, though, either. Inside Out, I just think a really cool Pixar movie. I think that's the stuff that I get excited about when Pixar does things like this. Not a fourth Toy Story movie, which I loved, but was not excited for because they're at their best when they're doing the most interesting stuff, when they're just doing something bonkers and attempting to communicate how emotions work and how puberty works to children that are concrete thinkers. They're finding a way to tell a story that entertains and educates children on abstract concepts that their brains aren't wired to understand yet. That, to me, I love that Pixar would do something like that. And that's why I'm excited for this movie Soul that they have coming out later this year. Then we have the Indiana Jones, The Complete Adventures. The Indiana Jones 1 and 3 are two of my favorite movies of all time. And I love Temple of Doom as well. I love action adventure films, and Raiders and Last Crusade are the two best adventure films of all time, with a fantastic lead, wonderful enemies in the Nazis, and then, I think that Temple of Doom, it's the one that I know objectively I can't say it's as good as those other two, but I love it just as much for the things that kind of make it a little bit off, darker, and hearts being ripped out and stuff. I think it has just as many kind of memorable little scenes in it too, with the bridge and all sorts of stuff like that. So I love those first three. Crystal Skulls, it seems like everybody had an off day with that one, though they spent like 15 years trying to get it made. So they had an off 15 years trying to get it made. But there's still it's easy to dunk on that one for gophers and swinging in the vines with monkeys and stuff like that and the overuse of CGI. But there's some things in it that I think are still quite good that get overhated a little bit. Inglourious Bastards, Quentin Tarantino's World War II film that has fantastic dialogue, tense scenes, great performances, and in Quentin Tarantino fashion, an alternative view of what happened in history. Great little film that only someone like Quentin Tarantino could create. Inception, just one of the coolest movies of the last 20 years. Christopher Nolan found a way to make a complex, intricate story about dreams that's still exciting, still an action movie, still character-based, has multiple interpretations, and it all goes together and is visualized wonderfully. And even had some classic Christopher Nolan cast in it, some established actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, but then an up-and-coming guy named Tom Hardy's also in it too before he really broke into the A-list. So, very cool film that, yeah, you've seen it. Iron Giant, Brad Bird film from over 20 years ago. Vin Diesel doing the voice of our Iron Giant. It's a film that didn't do great in the theaters at the time, but has grown to be loved by people. It's, a boy and his dog story. It's E.T., except with a giant robot creature, and it just does it really well. Brad Bird is just great with how he visualizes things. And the animation, because it's the way things are visualized, it's at a time period that they were just at the best of everything. It was right before everything started to transition over to CGI everything. And so then they had so much technology, and I just loved the way things were visualized right around the turn of the century. Then we have Isn't It Romantic? Don't be fooled if you can see that it looks like I haven't opened it because I haven't opened it. But that doesn't mean that this movie hasn't been watched many, many, many times. We bought it off Vudu when we did the Disc Plus digital deal, so we didn't need to open it. But this is another one that very, very frequently late at night my wife will put on to go to bed at night. But if you like rom-coms, it's a great send-up of the genre while having fun and being romantic in its own ways, too. This is the best Liam Hemsworth has ever been. He's really funny, kind of making fun of the way that he's normally cast in these movies and things. It's really funny. And then, like I said, kind of a nice send-up of the genre. It! Stephen King's It, the mini-series. Watched this for the first time just a few months back when It Chapter 2 came out. It's an odd thing to watch 30 years after its release because it is a TV movie or TV miniseries from 30 years ago, based on a very large book that's very rated R, and they're doing it for network television. There's limitations to that, so there's certain things that the people that grew up watching it for a long time probably appreciate more than I do, but I still... The first half in particular, I could appreciate a lot of what they were going for, as Tim Curry giving this very interesting, different take on Pennywise. Then we've got It, the movie from 2.5 years back, that I just thought did a great job of being a coming-of-age story and a horror movie, doing it so well, of terrifying villain, creepy images, teenagers that talk like teenagers, rag on each other. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't need to over-explain that, because you probably liked it too. Then we have the Jack Ryan 5 movie collection. So I grew up watching the Harrison Ford films, in particular Clear and Present Danger. I watched that movie a whole lot, put it on all the time. as one of these action spy espionage movies. And then over the years, we've had a bunch of different interpretations, and then right now we have a TV series starring John Krasinski that I've also really enjoyed. So these are ones that I have very fond memories of the series. Not all of them are great, not all of them are memorable. In particular, we've got one that's stars Chris Pine and I was about to say Harrison Ford, but this is Harrison Ford. Kevin Costner, directed by Kenneth Branagh. Very forgettable movie. Not nearly as good as it should be, but the ones with Harrison Ford I think are really good. Hunt for Red October, really good. Actually, even like Sum of All Fears. The one called Jack Ryan's the only one that I think is kind of a bit of a dud in the mix. Got Jackie Brown. For a long time, I didn't re-explore this film because I watched it. I didn't like it as much as Pulp Fiction. Kind of felt that disappointment when I first watched it. Didn't re-explore it until the last couple of years when I've been working on Tarantino rankings. And you have to watch it as its own thing, and then I think it has a lot of value. The other one about it, it's based off some writings from Elmore Leonard, and is right around the time that this came out, a bunch of Elmore Leonard stuff was getting translated into films, and I really liked a bunch of those movies, so I thought, Tarantino plus, this will be great. I don't know that the mix was perfect because Tarantino is such a distinct style and Elmore Leonard's plots are so distinct, and they're not exactly, I don't think the pieces entirely go together, but taken as on its own terms, not compared to Tarantino's other works, but as its own thing, it certainly has quite a bit to offer. But when it comes to Tarantino, the bar can be set really high. Jaws, one of the great movies of all time, and this the packaging opens up on this one. It's the 100th anniversary of Universal Edition. That's what this one is. So I've had a bunch of expensive, fancy versions of Jaws, and of course, it's the movie that really catapulted Steven Spielberg to being the legend that he is today. It's my wife's favorite movie of all time, and I hadn't seen it until we got married. I love Steven Spielberg. He was my favorite director, and I just hadn't seen Jaws until I got married. And she's like, "You haven't seen Jaws? That's weird. Here, watch Jaws." And she was right. It was, I've got a poster of it right behind me, too. There, Jaws. So she was right. I was a weirdo for not having seen it before. Then we've got a trilogy of John Wick movies. One of these franchises that came out of nowhere that didn't seem like a good idea for a movie. Like Keanu Reeves, who was not at a great point in time in his career, out for revenge because his dog was killed. And then it turns into the premium just action franchise of the decade. After the first one is like, how are you going to do a sequel? What are you going to kill this time? And instead of doing that, instead of being like, this time they killed his this and he's out for revenge, they doubled down on the world building because they did such great world building in the first film, had such a distinct action style, and it just turned into this franchise where you want to know more about the Continental and the rules of everything, and they kept upping the action while also going deeper with the plot. And somehow the movie about Keanu Reeves avenging his dead dog turned into a great action franchise. Who knew? And then we have Juliet Naked, a movie that I think I just kind of went to a little bit on a whim. My wife is a big fan of Rose Byrne, and then Chris O'Dowd from Bridesmaids. He's just kind of quirky, fun guy. She's like, there's a movie with them. It's kind of a rom-com. Let's check this out. It was playing across town at kind of the art house theater, and just really enjoyed it. Not over-the-top comedy, more subtle humor, great relationships. The comedy comes from the quirky nature of the characters, and, just kind of works. It's music-based. My wife seems to like music-based movies. So another one that frequently shows up playing late at night at the Chandler household. Moving along, we have the Jurassic Park, the Jurassic World franchise. So I was, as I've said a few times in here, the perfect age when the original Jurassic Park came out. Right as I started being able to, my mom would let me go see these movies with dinosaurs eating people, and I could understand some of the deeper stuff in it. So I was still a child for them in the most ways, but could understand it, right? That perfect tween, 13-year-old right in there. I guess it'd be 11, 12 when it came out. And then the second one came out when I was in high school. Always kind of disappointed me. And the third one, I was like, I can't believe this one is what it is. And then Jurassic World, big fan of this one. One of my favorite Taco Bell movies. It's dumb as can be. That doesn't change the fact that it's highly enjoyable to watch Chris Pratt on a motorcycle with velociraptors and then watching a T-Rex battle a Frankenstein dinosaur while teaming up with velociraptors and Chris Pratt. So a lot of things I've loved about this franchise, a lot of things that disappointed me. The last one, at first I kind of dug it, and the more I thought about it, the more I was less enthusiastic about it, but not so much that I'm not going to give the next one a shot, but still disappointment. Speaking of disappointments, Justice League, one of the biggest disappointments of all time. A movie that feels from beginning to end like it was directed by committee, because essentially it was. They squished down Zack Snyder's vision, and then they kept giving him notes. They kept making him rewrite it to be funnier and more like the MCU, booted him out, and then bring in Joss Whedon, who's totally different. Didn't try and get Joss Whedon to be anything like Zack Snyder. They were like, yeah, do your thing. So it's just all over the place. And so many of my favorite characters. It should be so great to see them all on screen together, live action for the first time. And it's definitely not that. Then we have The Karate Kid, one of my favorite movies of all time. Grew up watching this one and, to this day, still absolutely adore it and put it on very frequently. We got Jumanji. Actually, I should have 2 Jumanji movies right here, but I don't know where Welcome to the Jungle is. So, Jumanji, the one from back in the 90s with Robin Williams. I never loved this one as much as some people did. Maybe I was just right over the perfect age for it. Jurassic Park I was the target age, and by the time this one came out, maybe I was just a little bit over it. And I had just enough cynicism that I didn't, love it the way the other people. I didn't dislike or anything like that, but so it's not one that I've had as fond of memories like Jurassic Park, but still, of course, a nice adventure film from Joe Johnston, who went on to do Jurassic Park 3, which I didn't like. And he previously had done Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which is a movie I grew up watching, and The Rocketeer, which is another movie I grew up loving. But anyway, we'll get to those in the future, at least one of those in the future. The Jungle Book, Jon Favreau film with just absolutely stunning visual effects. It's unbelievable what they were able to do with that film, and that they were able to modernize it in a way that made the story fit for the style that they were going for. Then we have, out of order, apparently I don't know how the alphabet works, The Karate Kid, the remake from 2010 with Jackie Chan that takes place in China. Therefore, really the Kung Fu Kid would have been appropriate, but I understand marketing that you have to pick a title that people know because it would know what the Kung Fu Kid is. I'm a huge Jackie Chan fan. I actually really dig this one. There's a couple, I've got my criticisms of it, but, I have no hate for it. I think it's actually does a really nice job of telling the story and adding some new layers in some areas and retelling it in a way that I think works pretty well. The Kid Who Would Be King, a film that, just a nice little adventure for the whole family. That has some nice cameos from like Patrick Stewart in it, but some cool action, some, Chosen One type stuff, and all for multiple ages. We got 2 Kill Bill movies. I've always been a little bit critical of the second one. I always thought a little bit too slow. I wish it would a little bit more happened inside of it. They balanced out the plot a little bit more because this one's just so action-based, and then this one's a lot of people talking to each other. Rewatching them recently, there is something special about what Tarantino can do in telling these epics and massive stories in a way that no one else really can these days. And we got a pair of Kingsman movies, this one in steelbook fashion, and then The Golden Circle. Like so many people, was just kind of wowed by the first one. Just so stylized, distinct, unique, the way it did everything. This kind of star-making performance from Taron Egerton, Colin Firth doing something totally different. And I was pretty disappointed by the second one. I thought they just kind of made a lot of all the wrong choices with it, of who they brought back, who they killed off in the first 20 minutes, and just kind of certain the nastiness of it, and I don't know, it just didn't click for me. Certainly not the way the original one did. Got Kung Fu Panda. I've actually never seen this. I've never seen any of the Kung Fu Panda films. So one of these days I need to just buy the other 2 and rank them, watch them through. I've only heard great things. Everyone says they seem like movies that I would love. They do seem like movies that I would love. I just haven't really watched them. I've even played the video game, but I have not watched the movies. Then we got Krampus. Haven't seen it. Picked it up. I was going to be on a podcast, my friend Rachel Wagner's podcast, and we were going to talk about this one. They got swapped out for Gremlins, so I bought it. Need to watch it, but haven't watched it yet. La La Land, Damien Chazelle's throwback musical about two people trying to find fame in Los Angeles. And other people were a lot more la-la for it than I was. I think it's very good. It's very well done. But people were like, the best musical in 50 years. I don't know about that. I don't know about best musical in 50 years, but it is quite good. The two leads are very charming, very fun to see on screen, and obviously a return to the great chemistry 7-8 years prior in Crazy Stupid Love, and then you're doing more singing and dancing in this one. And visually, I mean, just stunning director that did some amazing stuff with it. And having been to LA and Griffith Observatory, where parts of it take place, it going to LA and driving around, going to a bunch of the spots makes you appreciate a bunch of movies more, because you just experience those places, and there's some pretty cool places there. One of them being Griffith Observatory. Leap. I've kind of seen this movie about 30 times and never just watched it a single time. I'm not the target audience, but my 5-year-old daughter is, and so then I've watched her watching it many times. We got a couple of Lego movies. First up, the Lego movie. Such a great, pleasant surprise when it came out. Fresh, chaotic energy. It was the year of the Pratt when he kind of made his rise from middle-tier character on a cult favorite comedy show to leading man guy, and then one of those pieces being the Lego movie, and just everything about it just being so energetic. Then had the spin-off, came a couple years later, the Lego Ninjago movie. Now my son loves Lego Ninjago, or he did. He's not currently in a Ninjago phase, but he had a year-long Ninjago phase that we were in the middle of when this movie came out. So that was pretty fun to get to take him to it. The movie itself, it seemed like they were trying to squish the Ninjago mythology through the template of the Lego movie, and I don't know that entirely worked, but they tried to do it. So we are officially halfway through this video. If you've made it this far, go ahead and put orange down below in the comment section. It's a little secret code to all of us, signifying that you've made it halfway through this epic mammoth video and are actually paying attention. Kicking off the second half of this video, the Lego Movie 2, a movie that when I first saw in the theater, I was like, okay, I kind of like this. Not quite as good as the first one. And then my kids have watched it on, that was the movie that I watched the most in the year 2019, because my kids and now my baby just watch it on loop constantly and listen to the soundtrack repeatedly. I've come to appreciate it a lot more as a form of maybe coping with how do I keep my mind sane after having watched that movie that many times. I just have to decide to love it. Then we got Batman, Lego, Family Matters. Haven't watched this one yet, picked it up for my son, and then sometimes I buy things and they get in on the shelf. I need to remember to take this one downstairs, like, hey buddy, we got to watch this one. Come to think of it, actually I'll put this aside actually at this moment so that actually does happen. Then we have The Leprechaun, the complete movie collection. If you're ever wondering if there's ever been a franchise that I couldn't rank, there's been a few. I tried to rank the Leprechaun movies. I watched the first three. Yeah, the first three. I didn't get to the Leprechaun in Space. I did get to the Leprechaun in Vegas, and I just went, I don't like these. I don't want my ranking videos to be me trashing things. And so I put in 6 hours of my life trying to rank those ones, and I just went, I'm just picking which piece of crap I like more. That would be my take. And I don't really want to make a ranking out of that, because the people that would click on a Leprechaun ranking would be fans of the franchise, and that's not a video that I would be interested in making. Limitless. Oh, look, a movie from Blockbuster. So, just a nice little thriller that has Bradley Cooper as this guy taking a pill that makes him super intelligent. They actually made a TV show out of it eventually. It's a continuation of the movie. I just always dug it. It's probably not as smart as it should be, given that it's about a guy being really smart, but still a movie that every time I watch it, I have fun with it. We got two versions of The Lion King. I was the perfect age, once again, for The Lion King. That Disney Renaissance era from The Little Mermaid to The Lion King. That was my prime era for Disney movies, and that was a fantastic little run there. This one is an old enough Blu-ray that it's a funny-sized case. It's like DVD case, but for a Blu-ray. Then we have the new remake, Lion King. You know, people seem to hate that one. A lot of people did. I really enjoyed it when I watched it. Maybe it's the nostalgia. Maybe it's just still being wowed by what Jon Favreau is doing with these photorealistic animals. I dug it. I can understand the criticism that, you know, they can't have lions, the realistic lions can't emote, and so you don't have emotion. There's truth to that, but, you know, I still dug it for what it was when I watched it. Then we got London Has Fallen, the second movie in the Has Fallen trilogy. I like action movies. I like Gerard Butler in action movies. So these movies are just easy for me to enjoy. A lot of people seem to indicate they didn't like this one nearly as much. I thought it was perfectly fine. I mean, maybe it's the weakest of the bunch, but it still provides all the action and the Gerard Butler shooting people in the face that I want. So I just don't know what some people were expecting from. Got Lone Survivor. Actually, I haven't watched this one yet. I've heard only amazing things about it, so I bought it because it was cheap, and then I just haven't had the time to sit down to watch it, so can't comment on it. Long Shot. Bit of a rom-com type story that's different from the traditional one because it's Seth Rogen with Charlize Theron and they're on the political campaign tour. What I really enjoyed is that it actually, while it's very political in certain regards, is respectful of people disagreeing and has some messaging inside of that I thought was necessary for the film they were making, and it hit pretty nicely. Got Looper from Rian Johnson, the guy that a bunch of the internet loves to hate because of The Last Jedi, but you still get away from The Last Jedi. That guy's got a great filmography and crafts great movies, and there's some sequence in this that are just fantastic in concept and direction. Very cool movie. Got The Lorax, one that my kids used to watch all the time, and so all the songs from it got stuck in my head for years and years and years and years. So I'm glad that they moved along to that one, to the Lego Movie 2, so that those songs would get stuck inside of my head. That's a reference to the Lego Movie 2 soundtrack. Machete, the movie that's based off a trailer for a fake movie in Grindhouse that they decided to turn into an actual movie. So it's designed to be schlocky greatness. It's I don't know. It's not as schlocky fun as it should be, probably because it's too long. But you know, there's still something enjoyable about watching Danny Trejo cut a guy's stomach open and use his intestines as a rope to swing down to a different building. Then we got 4 Mad Max movies. I grew up watching the first 3 on TNT, TBS, as a big Mel Gibson fan, as a big post-apocalyptic fan, as a big action movie fan. So then when they decided to bring the whole deal back with a large budget and Tom Hardy, who I really enjoy and can kind of bring a lot of that angry rage acting that Mel Gibson can bring, I was very pumped. And then, you know, obviously the movie absolutely delivered, did not disappoint. So very cool franchise. Interesting franchise too, because the first movie is like a prequel to the actual Mad Max movies. The first one, you see him in his normal life as society's crumbling, and then in the other 3, each of them are really stories about other people, and Mad Max steps into other people's stories, which is kind of interesting the way that all worked out. Got Madagascar. I've never seen it. My kids apparently love it when we let them watch it. Kind of lowbrow humor, so sometimes we're not crazy about them watching that stuff, but they love it. Major League Baseball comedy. I've always really enjoyed this movie. I used to put it on too much, and my wife would be like, why do you keep putting on Major League? So I stopped putting it on. Now it's been long enough. Maybe I need to put this one back on and watch Major League, because I always dug it. Got Man of Steel, a movie when it first came out. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. But I wasn't quite sure what to make of it because it was so different from the Superman I grew up with. And then as time has passed, I've just kind of grown to accept it as kind of this Elseworld Zack Snyder version of the character. Amazing score. Love Henry Cavill in the lead. I actually love the whole cast on this film. Does a bunch of things that I really, really enjoy. My favorite movie in the DCEU. And then Mary Poppins Returns. This was fun. I got to take my daughter to go see it when it came out in the theater, and that was a pretty cool little experience. And then, she really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really solid continuation of Mary Poppins. Just did a great job of having the charm without just feeling like a rehash. So I dug it. And then we'll have the biggest chunk of this entire video, the MCU. So my collection of MCU movies all right there in one handful. I don't have interesting versions of most of these. Couple fun little takes in here. Most of them are this version from Best Buy that they put out leading up to Infinity War. I didn't own a lot of them on Blu-ray, so I decided to pick them up when I did my Road to Infinity War series that I did. That was my spoiler reviews of each of those films. And so then that's when I bought them. So a lot of them are kind of this format to it. A couple surprises in there. The Incredible Hulk Steelbook, because they didn't actually, I don't think they had one of these versions of Incredible Hulk because of the studio stuff, how that played out with Universal having Hulk rights. So then I ended up getting a Steelbook when I picked one up for that. And then other fun things in here. What do we got? We've got 4K for Spider-Man Far From Home. Slowly trying to future-proof this one, so it's one of the later pickup. Well, it's the last pickup I got from these movies, so that one is in 4K. And then, because it's Endgame, I got the Steelbook the day it came out. Tried to get, the fanciest one that I could. So, there you have it. Those are my MCU Blu-rays, but most of them are, they're just this. It's all kind of that same thing. Other than this one, that's an early one I had, this Thor the Dark World, that, a movie that I'm not crazy about, but I've got an older Blu-ray for it. Moving along, I've got 2 copies of The Matrix because I'm an idiot and sometimes forget I own things and buy second copies of them because they're on sale. So one of them, just generic, not terribly good looking Blu-ray. And then the other one, Steelbook, very cool packaging for it. So nice little Steelbook. Fantastic science fiction movie. Perfect age when that one came out, being that I was in high school, so old enough that I could go see a rated R movie, thoroughly enjoy it without my mom getting mad at me or having to talk her into letting me see it. And I was also really into John Woo movies, Hong Kong action movies at the time, Keanu Reeves action movies, all the things that was inspired it. I was peak into that stuff at that moment. So perfect age, perfect prime audience member for The Matrix. And when it came out, I actually didn't love it all that much. Because I was so much into all those things, inspiration from Terminator, stuff like that, I just saw how derivative it was and didn't appreciate how it was able to synthesize all these different influences and create something new. So about couple years after it came out, and I'd seen it a few times, and they put out some special features, I was like, this thing is fantastic. This took everything that I love and put it in one and made it better. So eventually I came around to absolutely loving it, but it took a little bit. Then next up we got the Maze Runner double feature. So I don't have the third one, but I have the first 2. I didn't read the books, didn't see these ones in the theater, but whenever the third one came out, picked this up to rank the franchise. Maybe I'm just not the target audience, but it never clicked all that much with me. I didn't hate them or anything like that. So if you're wondering, an early ranking on my channel was the Maze Runner films from, I think that was 3 years ago. Man, I've been doing this for a while. Then we've got Men in Black 1 and 4. Apparently I don't own 2 and 3. Actually, I think I got the digital copies of them. Bought the digital versions whenever this one came out, and I was going to rank them. I was in high school when this one came out. I am the Will Smith generation. Everyone my age loves Will Smith and all of his movies, and one of the reasons for that was because of Men in Black, and we all learned all the words to the song and everything like that. This one, I didn't hate it like some people did. It's just felt like generic blockbuster movie to me, though, and that's kind of disappointing, is to take this such a quirky, interesting franchise with great characters and creativity kind of oozing from everything inside of it, and then just give us a pretty generic continuation. That was a big disappointment. Then we have Missing Link. Haven't watched this movie yet, but I will be watching it this week in the next 5 days because I'm going to rank all of the films nominated for Best Animated Picture of 2019. This was one of them, so I need to watch it very soon so I can rank it. So that'll be coming very shortly, or I'll be watching this shortly. Actually, maybe tonight. I'll be watching this one or Claws tonight in preparation for that video. Then we have... Actually, we got a whole set of Mission Impossible movies. I have grown up, or in my formative years, it wasn't fully growing up, but the first one came out when I was in middle school. So since I've been a movie lover, they've been coming out with Mission Impossible movies, and somehow they're still just as good, and in many ways better than they have ever been. First one, classic little spy film that's not an action movie, really. It's a thriller. It's a spy thriller. He never shoots a gun in the whole movie. I don't know if anyone shoots a gun in the entire movie. People are killed with knives and thrown off trains and stuff and explosions, but it's not guns. And so all that stuff with machine guns came later with J.J. Abrams. And second one, I was so excited because I loved the first one. And then John Woo was directing. I loved John Woo movies at that point in time because, as I just mentioned, I was really into Hong Kong cinema. And he had just done Face Off, Broken Arrow, Hard Target. Loved those movies. Loved Hard Boiled, The Killer, Better Tomorrow. Now that guy's going to do a Mission Impossible movie. Didn't pay off as well as I was hoping it would. Seemed like a mishmash of styles in it. And then the third one, J.J. Abrams, who had been doing the show Alias that I'd really enjoyed, was Spy Show with Jennifer Garner. And then he decided to do Mission Impossible. Or Tom Cruise saw the first two seasons, went, that's the guy that needs to do the new Mission Impossible movie. And he was right. That was the guy that needed to do the Mission Impossible movie. Absolutely paid off and led to this great streak that they've been on the last four where, Ghost Protocol had one of the best sequences I've ever seen in a movie with the Dubai Tower sequence. I saw that in IMAX, true IMAX. Unbelievable. And then they expanded the mythology with the last couple of movies and brought in the Rebecca Ferguson character, tied back. Just love what Chris McQuarrie's doing with them. And then with Fallout, when I picked it up, bought it right out of the gate, steelbook, fun packaging. This is the less fun packaging. This is quite cool. Moana, a movie I haven't loved it as much as some people. Some people went bonkers for this movie, as well as the "Where You'll Go" song that my kids love, but I haven't enjoyed this one quite as much. Not that it's bad, not that I'm hating on it. I'm just not one of the people that's going to go gushing over it. A movie that I was so incredibly pleasantly surprised by was Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I thought was a really clever, smart little animated film that I don't think we saw it in the theater. It was a couple years later that we got it on video rented, or I don't even remember where we first watched it. And was like, I really dig the style of this, the energy, the time travel, what they did with this. I thought was really smart and clever and creative. Great voice cast. And so this one is ones that seemed like it didn't get noticed all that much, but I really dug this movie. I actually need to remember to remind my kids about it so I can watch this one again with them. Mrs. Doubtfire. I was both... This is going to get depressing. So one of the first movies I saw with my mother and my sister after my parents got divorced was Mrs. Doubtfire. Terrible life choice because it's about divorce. And so, not the best movie to pick to go see is like let's go see the new Robin Williams comedy now that we're depressed because of the divorce we're going through. So, besides that, save for the stage of life when Mrs. Doubtfire came out, I would have been the perfect age for it because it's a family comedy about adult themes of divorce and things like that. So right as I'm at the age to understand that and kind of let it process it, you get this Robin Williams comedy, and it's really funny. It's him doing both things he's great at because he's such a great, energetic comedian, and he was just a fantastic actor, and that's what this movie is. It's a combination of drama and then being very funny at the same time. And it has Pierce Brosnan in it, so it was right before he was James Bond. This was the movie that I knew him from. I didn't know him from Remington Steele, the show that he did in the 80s. I knew him from Mrs. Doubtfire. I was like, whoa, that guy's going to be James Bond? Oh, interesting. The new boyfriend is going to do that. It's pretty cool. She went from Robin Williams to James Bond. That's lucky Sally Field. I don't know if it's lucky because Robin Williams is a funny guy, so it depends on if you want suave spy guy or if you want the funny man. Yeah, Murder on the Orient Express. I dug it. I liked a lot of the aesthetics. Maybe I just knew too much about the story for it to fully work for me because some of it depends on you not knowing some of the twists and turns, and I knew the twists and the turns. So my wife really dug it. Like she even got like emotional, and I'm excited. Oh, another fun thing about it is like you have Johnny Depp not doing his normal thing. Johnny Depp. I've been talking for like 3 hours straight now. I don't know where we are in the video. But I've been talking a long time, and apparently I'm starting to lose it a little bit. I think I started filming this at about like 12:30, 1 o'clock. It's 4:38 right now. I did have an hour break in the middle of it, but I, for the most part, been talking for about 3 hours straight. Johnny Depp, for the last 15 years, just feels like he keeps putting on white makeup, crazy hair, funny accents, quirky characters. And in here, this movie, he's playing an actor. Or not. See, I'm losing it. You've stuck around long enough to the point in time where my mind just starts to melt. He's actually acting and playing a character in this one. Sequel to it is actually coming out later this year, so I'm kind of excited about that one. Hope because I don't know anything about it the way that I knew the plotline Murder on the Orient Express. I don't know what kind of goes on in the sequel to it, so hopefully I'll enjoy that one a little bit more. Then we have The Mummy, a movie that came out when I was in high school. I probably should have loved it more than I did. I don't even know if I saw this in the theater. I've never been on the Mummy train. I know I saw the second one in the theater, but it's Indiana Jones based, some horror in there. I like Brendan Fraser. I should enjoy these movies more than I do, but for whatever reason, they've never clicked with me the way that they've clicked with a bunch of other people. Speaking of adventure films that click with me, National Treasure 2. Don't know where my copy of National Treasure is, but here's National Treasure 2. I really dig both of these. Oh, got this one from Blockbuster. I really enjoy both of these movies. I think they're great family adventure films that they're stupid, and that's half the fun, that they just kind of go for it. Like it's not, they're not embarrassed about how goofy some of the plot is. They're not embarrassed with the overt patriotism. They're just having these big adventure films that I've always really enjoyed, and I find them highly rewatchable. Then we got The Notebook. This movie came out right before I started dating my wife, so this was like our go-to movie night movie for years. And then I went to college. Actually, both of us went to college out in South Carolina. Parts of this was shot as Edisto Island. That was just like an hour and a half from where we were in school, or where I was in school at the time. So we would drive out to some of the beaches that are featured in this and drove by the plantations and stuff. That's pretty cool. Like the Notebook tour after watching The Notebook. So I've watched this movie way too many times, and I've actually read the book The Notebook as well. It's something I probably shouldn't admit to, since there's not many novels I have read, but one of them is The Notebook. And in this case, the movie is quite a bit better, probably because that delightful cast with my brain is gone. The next hour of this video is probably going to be rough. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. I just probably going to take a break after this next one I talk about so my brain can reform and I'll be articulate again. But great cast, great chemistry, and turning like a kind of a schlocky romance novel into like this romance epic. They successfully did that. Closing out this little batch before I take a little break is Newsies. Actually stars Christian Bale, and it's a musical that I remember my sister watching a ton back in the day, and now my wife watches it late at night frequently when I'm not around because I'm not going to watch Newsies. I might have all the songs memorized because I'm the king of New York, but if you don't know, that's a song from it that I've heard from the other room hundreds of times with my wife watching it. Never seen it. Maybe I should one of these days because I've been hearing it from the other room, whether from my sister watching it or now my wife watching it, but Newsies. So we've made it through the first two shelves, or two layers of shelves, and we're now to the ground level, the final stretch of my Blu-ray collection. If you're still watching and paying attention, down in the comments write Red Apple as part of our secret code indicating you have made it like 2/3 of the way through this video. We are almost to the end. By almost to the end, I mean there's probably like an hour and a half left in this. This is a long shoot, but my brain is getting a little bit better. Kicking off our final stretch, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the complete collection of the original run of films. I had only seen the first 3 or 4 of these, so I watched it's pretty rough little run 4, 5, 6 in Freddy's Dead. Not some of my favorite of the Freddy films, but the original one, kind of a classic for many reasons of introducing a great villain, great concept of fears, young Johnny Depp, Wes Craven in his prime. Third one, also taking that concept, expanding it, doing something different with it. Very cool stuff. The second one's interesting. I was at Fantastic Fest this last year, and there was a documentary made on the guy that starred in it, all the homosexual undertones and how he was a closeted homosexual and kind of his kind of journey in being in Hollywood at that time and how it kind of messed up his life because of the nature of the movie and stuff like that. Really interesting little deal. And actually, walking into the theater at the film festival, he was walking out, so I bumped into him, and then, he was sitting right behind me during the whole deal. Pretty cool little experience. It's called, I think, Scream Queen. I think it's available now publicly. I'm not quite sure if it was wide released or not. We've got The Nun, one of these spin-offs in the Conjuring universe. Very dull film that just didn't have anything interesting to do. It's like, look, we're in a creepy environment. And they made the weird choice to cast the Vera Farmiga's younger sister as the lead in the film. And her younger sister's like 20 years younger than her, and she looks like her 20 years ago. So I was legitimately confused watching, like, is this like, because Vera Farmiga's the star of the Conjuring films, Conjuring universe, and it's a prequel to the Conjuring films. So I was thinking, like, is this supposed to be a relative? Is this her when she's younger? Nope, no connections. Just they chose to cast her sister that looks exactly like a younger version of her, which is a very odd, weird thing to do. The original Ocean's Trilogy, I thought I had the new one. So the original Ocean's Trilogy, the first one is just a classic heist film. One of the coolest movies, just stylized. Steven Soderbergh taking his indie aesthetics and then getting a fantastic cast of cool actors and making a mainstream film out of it. Super watchable, fun, plot twist, great characters, snappy dialogue, all the stuff you want. The sequels weren't quite as fresh and snappy. Still very enjoyable films, though. Oblivion, I don't know, pretty forgettable little Tom Cruise vehicle. I should be the target audience since it's sci-fi and Tom Cruise, and by the end of it, I was like, okay, that just happened. Office Space, great little comedy, shot here in Austin where I live. The wife of someone I know was in it, in the kind of a background, just someone in the office, not like an actual character in it. I need to rewatch this one just to figure out where they shot some of this stuff and kind of go on the office tour and see some of it. But, just great little Mike Judge comedy and super quotable. Olympus Has Fallen, the other movie in the Has Fallen series that I own the movie store. So there's 3 movies in the trilogy. 2 of them I own. The third one I don't own quite yet, but I got to interview the director last year. It's really cool. First time I ever interviewed a director or anything like that. Really neat experience, but I haven't bought the movie yet. Need to go do that to complete my set. So the reason it's not opened yet is because the movie was streaming on Netflix. So when I was going to watch it, every time I've been in the mood to watch it, it's like, I don't need to open my copy of it. I'll just watch it on Netflix. So, sometimes Netflix creates these scenarios where it seems like I haven't watched the movies I own, but I have. They're just also on streaming, and it's more convenient to just click on Netflix than walk upstairs into my set and grab my movies. We got 2 of these. Sometimes my movies are out of order. I don't know the alphabet, apparently. Pacific Rim 1 and 2. I know everyone's supposed to just rave about how amazing Guillermo del Toro is. And of course, he's very creative and inventive. I just never fully understood how much people gush over him. Like with Pacific Rim, I didn't get why the first one is that much better than the second one. Maybe I need to rewatch it and maybe it'll click a little bit more for me. But to me, both of them provided me big, gigantic mechs battling big monsters, kaiju. This one, you have some mechs battling mechs, but it's all big things battling each other in cities, which is what I want. All of them, both of them have fun actors, so I really enjoyed both of these movies. Maybe I just need to give the first one another run through and watch them side by side to see if maybe it'll click with me why everyone's like, oh, the first one's so much better than the second one. Guillermo del Toro's the best. I guess. My Little Pony, the movie. Got to take my daughter to go see this one. One of the first movies she ever saw in the theater. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, I'm not the target audience. Hate to break it to you if you're a brony, but I'm not a brony. So, you know, I guess I could appreciate it. It was better than I was expecting. I thought I was just going to be annoyed by the film. Maybe it's because I was watching with my daughter, but I didn't mind it all that much. Then we have The Page Master. I mean, there's another one I need to... We bought it to show our kids because, as I mentioned earlier, they love Kevin from Home Alone. This has Macaulay Culkin, kind of keyword, Harry Potter-esque, and we wouldn't fully let our kids watch the Harry Potter movies because it get a little bit too dark. So this seemed like, hey, magic type stuff, Kevin from Home Alone, and then we forgot to show it to them. So that's why it's still in the packaging. Peanut movie, great little Snoopy film, and it managed to have the nature of the humor right, the characters are right, and they found a way to take that distinct artistic style and do it with computer animation, and it works. And so this is a great little update of Charlie Brown and Snoopy. I really dig that movie. Pet Sematary. I didn't grow up watching the original films, and I've never read the book or anything like that. So I only watched the original two a week before I saw this one. So I had no kind of history going into it. It's a little bit generic, but I thought a really nice little update of it. I mean, just when I say generic, I mean, it's just follows a lot of the things you expect from modern day horror films, but I thought they had some clever ways to kind of update the formula just a little bit and not fully retread what they did before. Some people felt betrayed, like, you changed it. I was like, well, is that a bad thing to kind of tell the story in a different way and get different characters and different family dynamics? That seems like a good way to do a remake and an update of these things. So I wasn't bananas for it, but I thought it was a nice little new version of Pet Sematary for the 21st century. Pitch Perfect trilogy of films. You've got one that I think is just such a great, fresh, kind of weird, quirky comedy with some fantastic music in it. A sequel that does the weird sequel thing where it tries to just repeat the first one with lesser success, but some standout moments, especially with Keegan-Michael Key. I think he's a standout in it. So some things about this one that I think are still really good, but still nowhere near as good as the original one. And then the third one doing, for some strange reason, turns into like an action movie. Like right out of the gate, the movie shows them on a mission, trying to rescue people. Even the trailers for it showed them like jumping off a boat with an explosion behind them, and they're running around with guns, and you're like, what just happened? Like, this is the Pitch Perfect movies. It's about college students singing. What are you doing? So I haven't actually rewatched the third one yet because I was so weirded out by it. Enough years have passed. I own it. I need to rewatch it and see if maybe time has been kind to it. I doubt it has been. I'm imagining time will just make me even more annoyed. Like, even all the guy characters are gone and stuff. So it lost a bunch of what made the first one so good and replaced it with bad action sequences. Then we've got Planet of the Apes. So we've got the original one from 1968 that back in high school I would watch these on TNT TBS. That's a recurring theme in here. There's a little bit of a sadder story. Like, my mom was in a car accident when I was in high school. She was actually in the hospital for 3 months. And that 3 months fell when the 50th anniversary, so 1998. And so they were constantly looping the Planet of the Apes movies at the hospital on cable, and all these documentaries on the making of the film. So that's where I spent a lot of time watching the Planet of the Apes movies while my mom was in the hospital when I was in high school. So when they announced that they were doing Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I was like, this is a terrible idea. What are they doing? This will not end well. So I didn't even see the first one in the theater. Just rented it when it came out on video, like, okay, I'll just give this a shot. I loved it. I just thought it was great. just the fact that they made Caesar the actual lead, the human characters had depth. You understood what they were doing. There's not really a villain. Like, there's the antagonist type character, but it's misunderstandings and mistakes that are what lead to the conflict drama rather than mustache twirling villains. And then they did a second movie that was even better. I mean, I loved the first one, and the second one just did such a great job of telling a totally different story, expanding the story of Caesar, being a tragedy where, once again, it's not about evil villains. I mean, Koba's really bad, but you know why he's like that. You understand why he disagrees with Caesar and what led him kind of crazy because he was tortured. So I love that they managed to make them serious films with great spectacle, a great drama as well. And then they closed it out. It's got a steelbook for War of the Planet of the Apes. I haven't opened it to watch it. I just picked this one up not too long ago, but they had it on the steelbook on sale. I was like, I got to pick that up. And closed that really nice. Some people are disappointed because the war wasn't like it wasn't like trench warfare. It wasn't all out war. It was much more kind of prison camp, war POW type stuff rather than what you kind of expected from it. So maybe the title, ill-advised. Besides that, I think great way to close out the trilogy and a fantastic score. I loved the music inside of it that was just so sad and tragic while inspiring in another way. Next up, Point Break, the Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze action movie that has the exact same plot as the original, The Fast and the Furious, directed by Catherine Bigelow, kind of a classic 90s action movie. It was never the one that I went back to. Other people loved that movie more than I did necessarily. I liked Speed, if you want Keanu Reeves a little bit more than Point Break. But one I need to rewatch it. I haven't watched it even since I purchased it, so that's one. It's been a while since I've given it a fair shot. And then we got the Predator movies. I love the original. What do I have here? The original Predator. I just love that film. One of my favorite movies of all time. Predator 2, I've never liked. Predator 2. Predator's the one from about 10 years ago with Adrian Brody. That was quite good. It is not a classic like the first one, but if you want more Predator action, I thought it did a really nice job of that. If like, oh, here it is. Predators. I thought it just did a really nice job of giving us a different take on it. Great cast with Danny Trejo and Lawrence Fishburne, Topher Grace, Walton Goggins. And then we got the actor in the original Predator, Shane Black, was going to do a Predator movie. Some of us were so excited. This was my most anticipated movie of that year. And that, in fact, when it came out, people get mad at me whenever I tell this story. Movie came out the day after my daughter was born, my second daughter, Karis. So we're still in the hospital. And I left my wife and newborn baby at the hospital to go see The Predator because I was so excited to see it. Movie was such a disappointment. Keep in mind, they were sleeping. Other people were there. I had full permission. I didn't abandon them or anything. It wasn't anything that was like weird. Literally, I would be either sleeping on a couch while they were sleeping, or I would go to a 10 o'clock movie. So I went to a 10 o'clock movie. There's no, I did not get in any trouble from the actual wife. But the comment section doesn't like that story very much. And the movie was not abandon your wife after newborn's born worthy. We have Primal Fear, an early Edward Norton film kind of showing just how good of an actor he was. I haven't watched this in a long time, so I really need to rewatch this one, kind of one of those 90s courtroom type films where you don't know who's guilty, who isn't. Need to give it another shot. Then we have The Princess Bride. How do I not open this one? So my kids are like right at the age where I think I could show this to them and they'd appreciate it. Classic swashbuckler. A little bit of romance in there and plenty of wordplay for kids to love. Prometheus, I touched on this one just a little bit when I talked about the Alien movies. Maybe I should move this in my collection to be actually next to those ones since all the other Alien movies are together. It's wonderfully, beautifully directed, but I've just never... I just don't like the mythology stuff that they did with it. And just feels so pretentious, so I just can't get into it. Then we have the Psycho series, all 4 Psycho movies. I've only seen the original one, and even that one I haven't seen for a while. So I'm always... what I want to do every year is rank a horror franchise every single month, is just have that as a regular part of my routine, is touching on some horror franchise. So I've purchased this one, much like with the Evil Dead movies, so I can do it when I have a month where I just have that window to do something different that I haven't done before. Just haven't done it yet. Pulp Fiction, my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. One of those movies that made me love movies and understand that movies aren't all sticking to a formula. They're not all big blockbusters, and they can still be just as exciting, great characters, great dialogue, without being all that stuff that I do love in other movies. Then this is a pretty cool one. This is the Punisher from 1989 with Dolph Lundgren, but it's a European import of it. So it has like a work cut of it. It has like all these special features that are like guerrilla style interview with Dolph Lundgren from a few years back with him like at the gym. So this is a pretty cool one that I literally imported in to get it. Then we have Punisher Warzone, a movie that didn't do great at the box office. I'd been waiting for it to come out because I was a big fan of the one with Thomas Jane, and which I apparently don't own on Blu-ray. And then this one came out just at the wrong time, so I missed it. And I mean, it's stuff that I love. Absolute carnage. It's a little bit campy with Jigsaw. I wish Jigsaw wasn't so goofy in the way that they did him. But otherwise, a movie that has a bunch of things that I love about it. We got then The Purge 1 and 2. The first one kind of underutilized the concept. The second one, easily my favorite of the bunch. Frank Grillo's a great lead. And this is what I want The Purge to be. When they're like this, I like the Purge movies. When they're a little bit pretentious like the third one or home invasion films, total waste of a great concept. Second one, that is what I want from a Purge movie. Then we got Quantum of Solace. Disappointing follow-up to Casino Royale. It was being made right as there was a writer's strike, and so they didn't have a complete script. They couldn't get an actual writer to work on it, so like Daniel Craig was having to write it. So, I think it shows when you watch the movie. Then we have Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph Breaks the Internet. I was not crazy about this film. I only bought it because it was on jumbo sale on Black Friday. I thought the movie in the second half really burned me on it. I just don't think it worked. I loved the first half. I was really tracking with it. And then halfway through, it totally, utterly lost me. Then we have the first 4 Rambo movies, 3 of them being on 4K in kind of whatever this slick version of that they came out over the last few years. And then the second one being just kind of traditional little Blu-ray. So I grew up loving Stallone movies. So those movies have been a big part of my life. Once again, movies I watched on cable, TNT, TBS, way back in the day. And then have gone to kind of appreciate them, especially the first one, First Blood, as I learned to understand some of the implications of what the movie was about and the treatment of Vietnam vets and things like that. So then, and then the fourth one came out about a year into my marriage, and so took my wife to go see it, and then had to apologize to her. She said, "I'm never going to a movie with you again. It's the most violent thing I've ever seen." Yeah, wasn't it amazing? No. Slowly have learned which movies I should and shouldn't take her to. So when Last Blood came out, I did not take my wife to see that one. Ready Player One. This is an example of a movie where I did read the book before I saw the movie. And as the cliche goes, the book was better than the movie. Some of it's just the inherent nature of the book. There's a bunch of sequences that are really interesting as literature that would be really boring in the movie because you'd be watching someone play a video game, and there's not a way to do that. Or sequences where like people for 2 hours are like reenacting a movie. That doesn't work. So they had to find other ways to do certain things, and they had to like streamline things. And yeah, normally I'm not the guy saying, well, the book is so much better. But in this case, I can say the book is so much better. Then we have Red Sparrow. I haven't finished this movie yet. I tried to watch it. It's an espionage movie. Jennifer Lawrence. This is pretty cool. I should love this. It's a rough watch because they're like trying to sexually desensitize these girls. And so then they have to sit around watching pornography. They're being raped in the showers. They're having to perform sexual acts in front of a group of people. This is like the first 40 minutes of the movie. So I was like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to make it through this one. So turn it off. One of these days, maybe I'll try and watch through it, but it was just Not for me. Moving right along, Reign of Fire. Got this one from Blockbuster. Hey, Blockbuster. It's a movie from before Christian Bale was on the A-list and was in Batman. And it's a movie about dragons. It's from Rob Bowman, who is a very prominent X-Files director. It's got Matthew McConaughey. And I haven't watched it in a while, so I don't know how well it would hold up with me if I watched it now. But my wife and I used to watch this movie all the time. It's just, this dragon movie that's kind of ridiculous, a little bit too self-serious. So we've talked about it a few times. It just hasn't happened. I need to give that one a watch. Reservoir Dogs, the original Quentin Tarantino film that still holds up to this day. It's just a great example of how he's great with characters, soundtrack, dialogue, small scale storytelling that's still compelling. Non-linear storytelling, all of it, the stuff that he's known for, present from his very first film. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Another movie that it was so formative for me in my early years of just the perfect age to Robin Hood, and it's like a serious movie. Oh, it's cool action. I've always loved this movie. I had the toys for it, I had the play sets and everything, and this is my version of Robin Hood. I guess I watched the one with the fox when I was growing up a little bit, but this is my definitive one that I by far watched. And a very fun Alan Rickman in it being crazy over the top. Got RoboCop. Got a fan sent this to me in the mail just a few months back. I'm working on a RoboCop ranking. I've watched the first two. Need to watch the third one and this one. There's not a new movie coming out, so there's not like a time frame for it. There's no reason to rush that out or anything. But still, a movie that I didn't hate the remake. I don't think it works well to remake Paul Verhoeven because he's so distinct, and what you like about his original, it'll get lost if someone else does it. And you got to find something different. So when they remade RoboCop and Total Recall, they just became too generic. They just felt like sci-fi movies rather than these distinct movies that had a satire to them and ultra violence and all this stuff that was so Paul Verhoeven just got lost. So I didn't dislike them. They're just not memorable. There's no reason I would choose to rewatch the remake as opposed to the flashy Paul Verhoeven original. Rocketeer, Joe Johnston film that's a World War II setting. About a guy with a rocket pack. Really enjoyed this movie, saw it in the theater, and then after it came out, I went to Disney World the next summer, and they had all these Rocketeer things, so I saw a Rocketeer stunt show and got my picture taken with the Rocketeer. Not actually Bill Campbell, but some other guy in there, but very fun little adventure film. If you're looking for a family adventure film, a bit of an Indiana Jones type vibe to it, check this one out. Then we have Role Models. Got this one from Blockbuster when it was going out of business. Hey, Blockbuster! But I haven't watched it in forever, so I don't remember if I actually liked this movie or if it's like, hey, I need a movie to watch. That's $3. I guess I'll buy that. That's why it's in this ridiculous oversized case and is pretty ugly, but I haven't watched that in forever, so I have no comment on it. Speaking of classics that I was the perfect age for, Sandlot. It's targeted for 10-year-olds, and I was 10 years old when it came out, so this was the movie everyone was talking about. When I was in the 5th grade, we all went to go see it, talked about it, watched it on repeat, bought copies of it. If we did sleepovers, we rewatched it. So this iconic film filled with quotable quotes, I was the original generation of Sandlot fans. Got Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, a very stylized film from Edgar Wright from about 10 years ago. There's never been a movie that was just like this. And it's based off graphic novel, but the way so much of it is done is like a video game in a way that we've never seen before. So there's all these fights between the ex-girlfriends, and it's all like a video game. So cool the way it's visualized, energetic, very cool stuff. If you haven't seen this one, go check this one out. Secret Life of Pets 2. I actually really like this one a lot more than the first one. Just the stories that they told, the characters, Harrison Ford's added into the mix, a little bit more focused, less mean-spirited. Really dug this one. That's overstated. I'm just saying lines now. I've been talking a long time. I wouldn't say I really dug it. I dug it more so than I was expecting to. Then we got Shaft. Radical tonal departure from the previous films. This one appeals purely on schlock value, plays more as a comedy than the previous ones. It's definitely not, if you compare it to the original Shaft from the 70s, this franchise has gone a long way, even though they're all in continuity with each other. And even this one kind of even retcons something that was interesting about the one from 20 years ago that had Christian Bale in it, actually kind of retcons a little plot point in it. But I had fun with it. I get why a lot of people didn't. I get why a lot of people had big issues with it. But that even some of the transgressive nature of it's meant to be inappropriate. Like, it knows it's being inappropriate as it's doing it. So I had fun with that. With it, though not great cinema. We got a 4K version of Shazam. Such a pleasant surprise. I think one of the early videos on my channel was a little editorial when they announced this movie, and I put out a video being like, hey, Shazam and Black Adam coming. Who cares? Well, I can tell you I care, because I really liked 95% of this movie. Wish they hadn't had demons biting heads off, but besides that, it's fun, it's funny, it's about family and really explores that sorts of idea. Has a great surprise finale. Very cool little film. Sicario, the Denis Villeneuve action thriller. Great cast, great setup. And do I have the second? Oh yeah, I have the second one too. It seemed like a lot of people weren't as crazy about the second one. I really dug the second one too. They're both very kind of tense action thrillers with this hitman, the Sicario character. So I really dug both of them. Next up, Signs. M. Night Shyamalan film. Some people didn't like it. They didn't think that the plot twist made any sense with where they were going with what ends up being able to take out the aliens. I don't know. I've never had any issues with it. For me, this is just another great, one of the M. Night classics from that initial run that he had there that touches on faith and purpose, a bunch of stuff like that I just thought worked really well. And a young Joaquin Phoenix in it as the son of Mel Gibson that, he did Gladiator before that. So that's where kind of Gladiator was the first one I really was paying attention to him. And then he showed up playing like a likable character, because his character in Gladiator, you're supposed to hate him. He's great at that. And then he's in Signs as the likable character. I was like, oh, whoever this guy is, I want to pay attention to him. And now he might win an Oscar for playing the Joker in this next Sunday. Then we have Sing, the Illumination film about a singing competition, one that everyone else in my household loves, so they play it all the time. I don't love it the way that they do. Then we have Skyfall, one of the other great James Bond film with our Daniel Craig. Pretty soon, the new one's coming out. Pretty excited for it. Apparently, the odd-numbered Daniel Craig ones are good, and the even-numbered ones have a few problems. So this next one's going to be an odd number. Very excited about that. But Skyfall, once again, doing what I thought Casino Royale did very well, which is make James Bond a human. Not just the caricature of the male fantasy, but actually a person that's processing through life, and I think it did it well. Speed, pick this one at Blockbuster. Hey, Blockbuster! I love this movie. Came out right when my mom started allowing me to go see rated R movies. So one of those first rated R movies I saw in the theater, and it just holds up really well and has snappy dialogue. Apparently, Joss Whedon wrote all the dialogue for it. He was the script doctor on it. Didn't get script credit on screen, but everybody knows and it's acknowledged that like he wrote all the snappy dialogue. So if you're looking for an action thriller, if you haven't seen Speed, you got to check out Speed. It's got Sandra Bullock and kind of the movie that made her the movie star. Wait, there it is. How to Train Your Dragon 3. So we talked about this one earlier, and I was wondering where it was because I thought I owned it. There it is. Apparently my baby, she comes in here, and whenever she plays in my office, she just pulls the Blu-rays off the shelves. So sometimes I miss when she has destroyed things and put them in the wrong place. Then we have the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy of films. You know, I love comic book movies, and that was the first one kicked off, along with X-Men, along with Blade. In each of them in their own way kicked off the modern era of comic book movies where they've just dominated at the box office for 20 years now. Third one has its problems, as we all know, but at the same time, these are very important films. And for all the faults of the third one, still has a lot to offer. Spectre, the last even number Daniel Craig's James Bond film. I'm not a fan of this one, but I knew I was going to be watching through and ranking all of them. I want to kind of get my collection of Bond films, Daniel Craig Bond films. So bought this one last year when I found it dirt cheap. And so pretty soon I'll be rewatching it in preparation for the new one. So I've got it available. But yeah, I was not crazy about that film. Spy. Speaking of movies that I am crazy about, Spy. My wife and I actually watched this just last night. It's one of her go-to-bed movies, which is hilarious to me because it's like really crass, vulgar, has penises in it, things like that. Normally, she does not like things like that. That is not her thing. Crass, vulgar, raunchy humor is not her thing. But for whatever reason, the movie Spy gets a pass. And I'll frequently come home and she'll be watching Spy and I get mad at her like, hey, why'd you put on Spy when I'd watch Spy? Oh, you'd watch it? Yes, I've told you that many times before. But I mean, it probably has, she tends to like Paul Feig. Likes a number of the Paul Feig movies. Jason Statham, this is probably her favorite Jason Statham performance because he's doing his normal thing, but he's an idiot. So it's really, if you haven't seen Spy, it's hilarious. Whoa, I got too worked up and assaulted my copy of this movie. She's a big fan of Jude Law, so that probably helps. And she's a big fan of Rose Byrne. Put all that together and, you get a spy movie that she actually, she hates all of the non-Daniel Craig James Bond movies, which I just watched all the Sean Connery and Roger Moore movies, which she did not enjoy that window of time we were watching through all those. Then we have The Social Network and got one of these jumbo pack versions of it. With a bunch of special features and stuff. David Fincher, kind of classic film about Facebook. And nice little thriller, nice cast. Got Armie Hammer in there. We got Andrew Garfield. So a bunch of those guys, before they became famous, David Fincher discovered them, put them in The Social Network. I've actually only seen this movie one time, and bought this because I knew I'd do a David Fincher ranking eventually. Hasn't quite happened yet because he hasn't put a movie out. He hasn't put out a movie in the full length of time I've had my channel. So there hasn't been a window for me to do my normal ranking thing. I think he's got one coming out later this year, so I'll finally get to rewatch this one, and you guys will get your David Fincher ranking. Moving along, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Such a cool animated film, such a cool Spider-Man movie, such a cool comic book movie, where they managed to do something you couldn't do live action, which is visualize a comic book. Like actually take what's distinct about the style of comic books and make it into a film that's in motion. It gets weird like the comic books. It does so many things that just, I don't know how it would work live action. It nails all of it. It works as a Spider-Man film, introduces all these new versions that were the general public doesn't know as well. Just such a pleasant surprise on so many levels. There's so many things to rave about that film because it can be funny, it can be heartfelt, has action, unique, distinct style animation, all very cool stuff. We got Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. I've never had any big issues with the first one. It's a little bit dull and bland. As I mentioned 4 hours ago in this video, the relationship between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, I think they have great chemistry. I love seeing them on screen. I've said this many times before, but I would love it if Mark Webb would do a non-Spider-Man movie with the two of them. Do a spiritual sequel to 500 Days of Summer where it's about these two people in their 30s trying to find love or whatever. That's like they have great chemistry. Mark Webb is great at those types of stories. I would love to see that one. The second one just felt like a movie that was a little bit all over the place. You could feel the studio notes, the reworking in the editing room, and competing visions between everybody. And once again, relationship between the characters are great. Plot, the story, a bunch of the tone, out of control. Then I have this set that I have no recollection of buying. And a lady I used to work with one day was like, here, is your Blu-rays back? And she gave it to me and I was like, what do you mean? She goes, yeah, I wanted to watch the Star Trek movies, asked to borrow them, and you lent them to me. And so then she gave them back to me. I was like, I don't remember that. And here we are, a year or two since that happened. I don't remember buying this, lending it out to her. So I don't understand. Maybe she got me confused with someone else, but it's the Blu-ray set for the Star Trek, the Next Generation films. in classic Star Trek form, every other one is good. Well, it actually doesn't work as well with those ones because the 10th one's no good either. But First Contact, classic Star Trek, Nemesis ends on a weird note. Fun fact, or not fact, fun little thing though. So the new Picard TV show came back or debuted a week and a half ago. And one of the things it does really well that I'm really appreciating is that it's a direct sequel to both Nemesis and First Contact, as well as couple of episodes of the TV show, and just a really nice job of just continuing things. So, but I don't remember buying this ever, but clearly it exists. Couple more Star Trek movies in the mix. The 2 Star Trek 2s with Khan in them. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, my favorite Star Trek movie of all time. One of my favorite movies of all time. Had a cool, fun Mondo cover for this one. So picked it up. And then Star Trek Into Darkness, a movie that I enjoy more as just a movie than I do as a Star Trek film. As a Star Trek film, there's a few problems with it. But, that it is what it is. And then we've got a big old stack of Star Wars movies of different types and at different times and collections. So our first one in here, we've got a Lego Star Wars, The Padawan Menace. So kind of Phantom Menace, kind of is a Lego movie. It's not even a movie, isn't it? Like 30 minutes. I don't even know where this came from. I think my mom found it or something like that. But as my son loves Legos and Star Wars, he loves it. Then the complete Star Wars saga from before we had the sequel trilogy. Whenever they announced the whenever they announced the sequel trilogy, I went out and was like, all right, I got to get this, and so picked up the complete set at that time. And so it's pretty cool. Got a lot of special features and then fun packaging that has been destroyed by dogs and babies over the last 10 years. And then we've got, that's Step Brothers. That is not a Star Wars. I didn't even know that. That's how tired I am. I didn't realize that Step Brothers wasn't a Star Wars movie. And then we've got several of our... I don't have Rogue One yet. I need to pick up Rogue One. For whatever reason, Rogue One has managed to not make it into my collection as of yet. But we've got Solo, Force Awakens, and Last Jedi. We got Step Brothers, great little comedy from John C. Reilly, Will Ferrell. It's just so funny, so quotable, and they're just wonderful, hilarious man-children. Stuber and action comedy with Dave Bautista and Kumail Nanjiani that I really dug. It absolutely worked for me, and I love the chemistry between the two of them. Plenty of laugh-out-loud sequences for me, so I dug this. I watched it in the theater, and then I also watched it on a plane when I was coming back from LA, and still made me laugh, even on a plane with people around me, and I was just giggling around other people, which I don't know why I did that for you. Must have been talking too long. Got Suicide Squad, the director's cut. I might need to rewatch this one tonight, actually, because I'm seeing Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, whatever it's called, tomorrow night, so I might need a little bit of refresher, or maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want to rewatch this one. Not a great movie, kind of a perfect example of the WB tinkering way too much with absolutely everything. Got Superbad right there. Classic, get to the party comedy. I've said it before. I've realized this over the last year. I just don't like this genre this much. Movie makes me laugh. This one does. But this whole genre just never has really sat right with me. Watching high schoolers do drugs on each other, not really something that has ever been something I've enjoyed watching all that much. Super 8, the J.J. Abrams kind of throwback to Amblin films of the 80s, E.T., The Explorer, stuff like that. It's kind of like a precursor to Stranger Things, as well as it, with kind of tweens acting like actual tweens with kind of these sci-fi mystery type stuff. So if you like Stranger Things and have never seen Super 8, you might want to check out Super 8. Teen Titans Go to the Movie was a movie that I assumed would be awful and made me laugh from beginning to end. I thought that this was absolutely hilarious. Maybe it's because I was watching with my kids. I don't know why, but this movie absolutely worked for me. And of course, my kids loved it because it's very juvenile. Maybe that's why I loved it too, because I too am a juvenile at heart. Then we have, what is this? Tinkerbell and the Legend of the Never Beast. Never seen it. I guess it's my daughter's, but I own it. There it is. If you're wondering, 30 minutes actually passed since the last time you saw me because I ran my battery into the ground and I had to give it a little recharge as we go into the real final sprint here. Moving along, we've got Sweet Home Alabama, a movie that my wife used to watch on loop, repeat every single night Actually, when we were living in South Carolina, we didn't live in the best neighborhood, so this was the movie she would put on that would put her in a happy place so that she could sleep. And I bought it for her like a year ago, and she hasn't rewatched it since. We got The Sword and the Stone. I don't even know where we got this movie from. Don't remember when we got it. I watched it growing up, but we haven't shown it to my kids, I don't think. Or at least I haven't. Maybe my wife has, but not really sure about that one. Then we have a whole bunch of versions of all the different Taken movies. Too many of them, too many different places. But I didn't have digital copies, so then I found the whole set for cheap with the digital copies for Black Friday. It was under $10, and I was like, I want them in my digital library, so I ended up buying multiple copies. So now I have this huge stack of Taken movies, even though there's only 3 of them. First one, nice little action thriller with a nice ticking clock and a redirection of Liam Neeson's career in his mid-50s. And the other one's not as good. 10 Things I Hate About You. Hey, with my number system, maybe this one probably should have been right over here. Probably doesn't belong where I put this one in light of where I put all those other numbered movies. But I love this movie. One of my favorite high school movies of all time. Young Heath Ledger, young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, young Julia Stiles, and just a fun high school rom-com. Then we've got the Terminator Anthology. I love the Terminator movies. Even the bad ones I find very watchable. And so naturally I've had to have the Anthology. Not as definitive as you would think the Anthology would be, because there's so many different versions of Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 out on Blu-ray and DVD with all these different special features. And a bunch of them I don't think are in the set that I got. So even though I got the expensive Anthology, still doesn't have a bunch of the cool features that I used to have on some of my other DVDs. Alphabet. Terminator Genesis, the goofiest of the Terminator movies that it's like fan fiction galore. Kind of entertaining in some of the things that it does, especially with Arnold, who's just great in these movies, even when he's not in great movies. But very fan fiction-y in the way all of it plays out. Total Recall, a Paul Verhoeven Schwarzenegger movie that I love. Paul Verhoeven in his kind of prime with all these over-the-top movies that just utterly lack any subtlety. Perfect to mix with Arnold in his prime with sci-fi, all kinds of cool stuff where it's action, it's spy, sci-fi, one-liners, ultra-violence. Based on Philip K. Dick. Big fan of this one. This Means War, a movie that most people kind of hated. I had fun with it. Probably all of it just because of the genre. Mick G always pours a bunch of energy into his movies. And then, Tom Hardy, Reese Witherspoon, Chris Pine. That's a cast that I love right there and fun to watch. So, not a great movie, but one that I enjoy watching. Then we've got Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Do I have other Transformers movies in here, or do I just... are these out of order? Yeah. Children. There we go. Couple of Transformers movies, the first and second ones. First one, pretty fun little Transformers film with nice Michael-based spectacle. Shia LaBeouf has a very naturalistic way of acting. And then you have the second one, came out right during that writer's strike that I mentioned that kind of messed up Quantum of Solace. This one had the same problem, same writer's strike that made them kind of go into production with a script that wasn't really done. And it shows just a little bit watching the movie. We got a trilogy of Toy Story movies. The original computer animated film led to one of the most consistent franchises of the last 30 years. Even though I wasn't crazy about the idea that they were going to do a fourth one, still turned out great. I was wrong. They were right. And, my kids love them. Kids have been loving them ever since. They've aged incredibly well. They're very heartfelt, quite emotional. Great, great little films. And what do we have here? We've got The Transporter. Came out right it was right in that era where a bunch of Hong Kong directors were coming over. And so Corey Yuen was one of them. I enjoyed a bunch of his Hong Kong films way back in the day. And so he was... it's actually kind of a weird situation with like two different directors and kind of swapped out. I don't know which one was which. And Luc Besson, who did The Professional, Léon, La Femme Nikita back in the 90s. So kind of hybrid of all that. Plus the guy from Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, decided to do an action movie. Because at the time, that's who he was to be, the funny guy from those Guy Ritchie movies. Put it all together. I was the target audience for this movie when it first came out. I actually didn't love it all that much. I mean, they're fun. They're fun B-movies, but not considering all the things about them that should make me go gaga for them. I don't as much as I would think it would. I actually have all the notes in place to do a Transformer franchise ranking. I watched all of them, was set up to do it, and I just never filmed it. I was going to, when I went to LA, I planned on having some videos kind of pre-done, and one of them was going to be my Transporter ranking, and then I didn't do it. Twister, a late 90s disaster movie about tornadoes. It's dumb as anything and a lot of fun at the same time about people chasing tornadoes and watching tornadoes tear houses to pieces and plenty of melodrama. It's a fun one. And we got a couple of underworld movies. Some of those early Zeros, Matrix-inspired films with kind of the look, stylized action, black leather coats, stuff like that. Also a franchise that's not as good as it probably should be, but I've spent a lot of time watching at least the original Underworld. We are getting really close to finishing. We're actually 17/19ths of the way through this video. And what do we have next? We've got Unstoppable, one I picked up from Blockbuster as it was going out of business. Hey, Blockbuster! It's a Tony Scott thriller with Denzel Washington and Chris Pine. Really nice little movie that didn't get talked about a whole lot. Quentin Tarantino, I believe, had it in his top 10 list of his favorite movies of the decade. We got Pixar at its best, doing something just weird, different, that doesn't seem like it should work, but it absolutely does, with this tale of an old man moving his house with balloons and taking a dog and a kid with him all along the way. Upgrade! One of these movies that kind of came out of nowhere, where the writer of Saw did this action, high-concept action movie about a voice in this guy's head kind of controlling him that... From the premise, it doesn't seem nearly as good as it is. And then as I was watching it, I kept thinking, oh man, if they're about to do, I've really been enjoying it. If they're about to do this, it's going to kill it for me. Every time I thought that, kind of curve left ball, or curve ball, and I went, oh, that's what you're doing. And it was like 3 or 4 times in the finale where I thought it was about to lose me, and every single time it won me back, and it ended. I was just like, man, well played. Later this month, he's doing The Invisible Man, the director is, so I'm pretty excited to check that out just because I was so impressed by what he did with Upgrade. Now we've got Us. I was pretty disappointed because I really like Get Out, really like Jordan Peele. Excuse me. And I'd heard great things about it coming out of South by Southwest, and I went to go see it, and it disappointed me a good bit. I liked it a lot more as the home invasion film. As soon as it moved into the third act, the answers and stuff didn't work for me. There was just too many holes, too many things I couldn't break out of my mind. And some of it even came off very pretentious to me and kind of soured me on the film. Varsity Blues, a movie that was actually shot right around where I live, and it's a very Texas-y type film about Friday night. Well, I was about to say Friday Night Lights is a movie and TV show that have the same plot as this movie, actually, but sort of activity that happens in the fall in Texas. Very familiar to me when this movie came out. It's about high schoolers. I was in high school in Central Texas, so it's not that much like reality. But at the same time, one of these movies that everybody watched when I was in high school because we were these people in theory, though not really at all. I don't even know if what I just said made sense. It made sense in my head, and as I was saying it, I was like, this is not nearly as articulate as it should be. What I was trying to say was, it's a movie about Texas football, and I'm in Texas. We were all about football, and it was about high schoolers as I was a high schooler, but it's not nearly as much as my peers attempted to claim that this is what it's just like. No, it was not. Then we got Venom in 4K, a movie that I really dug the relationship between Eddie and Venom, the actual story that was told and how it's packaged and told. not quite as good. So while I've got plenty of criticisms of the original one, I'm actually kind of curious about what they're going to do with the second one. WALL-E, more weird Pixar, and Pixar at their best, telling a story that shouldn't work, that doesn't make any sense as a kid's movie, and absolutely knocking it out of the park. We got Walk the Line, James Mangold film about Johnny Cash. I haven't seen this one yet. I was going to do a James Mangold ranking, and then at the time, it didn't work out. So I bought the movie, but haven't been able to watch it yet. Need to check this one out. I like biopics. I like Joaquin Phoenix, like Reese Witherspoon. Love James Mangold movies. Haven't seen it, though. Wedding Crashers, comedy from about 15 years ago that I didn't love it as much as some people did, but still makes me laugh whenever I do put it on. It's got Rachel McAdams in there, so that's always a nice touch. Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, a bunch of people that I really enjoy. So, when I watch it, it's fun, though not one that I'm not as crazy about it as many others. Wreck-It Ralph, just a great little concept for a film that kids can enjoy, I can enjoy, has a bunch of Easter eggs my kids don't fully understand yet, but that I can appreciate. We got Whiplash, the Damien Chazelle film about a subject that I love movies about, of course, competitive jazz drumming. Who doesn't love a good competitive jazz drumming movie? Somehow, though, Damien Chazelle takes a subject that shouldn't be interesting and makes this absolutely captivating film about people pursuing excellence. It's tense. You feel it growing as it goes along, all building up to a finale that shouldn't be interesting as it's just a drum solo, and it works. And just the faces people make each other make all the difference. Love that movie. That brings us to my X-Men collection. Actually, I'll cheat this a little bit. Got a few more X-Men movies. My X-Men collection, they're actually in the next box, but I thought I would pull them over. Got a bunch of 4Ks, or not 4Ks, steel boxes, because they were like on super duper sale at Best Buy the year before Dark Phoenix came out. So I would like slowly buy them every single month. And so I have a whole bunch of these really cool cased X-Men movies. The first X-Men movie is one of those, it came out when I was right after I graduated high school. So I graduate high school, that movie comes out kind of along with Spider-Man a couple years later, kicked off the modern era of comic book movies. And so a big, huge movie that's important in terms of the genre, and a movie that kind of like closing out these movies with Dark Phoenix. It's been my entire adult life that we've been getting Fox X-Men movies. Graduate high school, we get the first one, and then all the way up to this last summer, now that I'm a movie critic guy, and the last one comes out, obviously disappointed me, like as it disappointed most people. And here we also got Deadpool, Steelbook, some of these other ones, less exciting versions of them. My Days of Future Past is the Rogue Cut edition that has, it has Rogue inside of it as they cut her from the theatrical version of it. And then, just a couple the other movies in this set. This is it. We've made it to the very end. We only have this little batch right here with like 3 more movies and then a couple of seasons of television and a couple of these package ones with multiple movies in them. Thank you so much for tuning in for this whole deal, and to let me know that you made it all the way almost to the end, as we still got to talk about those ones, say Green Apple down below in the comment section as our secret code, letting me know how many of you actually made it to the end of the video, paying attention, still engaged, and without further delay, let's finish. Here we go. Yesterday, a movie that I just found to be absolutely charming. As soon as my wife and I walked out of the theater, I knew this was a movie that she was going to want to buy as soon as it came out, and she'd be watching it late at night on repeat, and I was correct. I don't know who the lead guy is other than in this movie, but I really hope I see him in a ton more stuff. I just thought that he was so fun and likable, charismatic. And I have no clue who this guy is outside of this film. But, I know some people didn't like the story or that it didn't have resolution, or I just didn't care about any of that. I cared about this weird what-if scenario with these fun characters and the Beatles music. And that's what I got. Next up, our penultimate film in this video, Zathura, the Jon Favreau movie that's kind of like a cousin to Jumanji. The book Zathura is a sequel to the book Jumanji. This isn't really a sequel to Jumanji, but they're related in that regard. And on the marketing, it doesn't say it anywhere in here. On the original poster, it said "In the World of Jumanji." So they are kind of related. This is my least favorite of the Jumanjis. Actually, I don't remember this new one. It might be. I don't remember. There's like the Robin Williams one and the first one with Kevin Hart and The Rock way up here. And then this one and the second one kind of didn't work as well for me. I think the issue is that they're in space, but they're just in a house. So you're doing a big space adventure, but you're just in a house. So it still feels small and you waste the potential of everything that is in space. Final movie in my collection. Still got some, we're not done yet. We got more things to talk about, but final movie in here, Zombieland. It's from the writers of Deadpool, and it came out, 7 years before Deadpool? And just such a ahead of its time meta commentary on stuff. And you can see where they wrote this movie. It was really interesting. And then I don't know if that's what Ryan Reynolds saw them do that and went, those are my guys. And then comes forward, and Deadpool comes out in 2016, and suddenly it makes this one feel so ahead of its time because it has that same kind of commentary on what's happening and breaking the fourth wall and stuff like that. But just really sharp, witty humor, great characters, fun world, and it's a zombie movie. Okay, I'm going to switch this up just a little bit. Got 3 of these multi-film packs here. First one is a horror one, Friday the 13th remake, Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and Freddy vs. Jason. Apparently, Freddy vs. Jason, for a long time, there wasn't a way to buy a normal Blu-ray as a standalone. So if you wanted the Blu-ray, for a long time, you just had to get this pack. That's actually why I got this one, because I thought I had a Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe this is my version of a Nightmare on Elm Street remake as well. I thought I had a standalone for that one. I definitely have a standalone of this one because you already saw this one, but maybe I did need it for both of these. But Freddy vs. Jason, I really enjoyed that movie. I have very fond memories. I saw it in the theater opening night, packed crowd of obnoxious people just like me, having fun at the absurdity of it. Then we have a threefer of comic book movies that are not superhero movies in the traditional sense. V for Vendetta, Watchmen, Constantine. I actually haven't seen Constantine yet, the TV show, or this movie with Keanu Reeves. And then I probably should have a better version of Watchmen because it's the Zack Snyder movie. It's Watchmen, but this is the version that I currently have of it. And our final movie set here, and who better? A Van Damme double feature, 2 of his best movies, Bloodsport, classic tournament fighter film. If you like martial arts tournament fighter movies, this is, of course, one of the ones that everybody has seen. Enter the Dragon, of course, the champion of tournament fighter movies. And then Bloodsport, very cool movie because it highlights a bunch of different styles. And then of the action movie Van Damme stuff, probably his best action movie is Time Cop, because it's a time travel movie, got a big budget to it, and, of course, he uses his skills in it. Here we go, our last little bit, a set of seasons of TV shows. First one, haven't even opened this one up yet. Batman the Animated Series, my favorite animated show of all time. They had it on like jumbo sale for half of what it normally costs, so I picked it up. And to me, this is the best animated show of all time. Maybe the people go, The Simpsons is going for third. Sure, okay, but no one's watched all of that. Lots of people have watched all of this one, and it's good from beginning to end. It's not like The Simpsons, where there's just so much of it that you have to call it legendary. But I mean, from the music to the characterizations, it's serious, but kids can still like it. Just an absolutely wonderful show that shows absolute reverence to the source material. Like, this is the definitive version of Batman, because even in the comics, there's so many different versions. This is a cohesive take on the character. Then we've got, these are all out of order. What is going on here? So we got Arrow. Obviously, I'm a comic book person, so TV show type person. I don't know why I don't have this first season, but I've got the second season of Arrow on Blu-ray. And then Justified. Talked about Elmore Leonard earlier. This show is based off an Elmore Leonard short piece. The first episode, I believe, is the specific one, and then they kind of went on. I don't know how much of the rest of the series is based off his writings, but the basis of this show is writings of Elmore Leonard. Very cool show. I haven't finished it yet. It's one of those. It's kind of serialized in nature, and so I watched like 3 seasons of it. Had a break. Other stuff happened, and I didn't go back to it. And so I just haven't. I've never finished it. I really need to because it's on some of the streaming services that I have. I could finish it, but I have to rewatch it from the beginning, and life happened, so that hasn't been something I've been able to. Here's a show I don't talk about much on my channel, but I've really enjoyed it. Person of Interest. It's from Jonah Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother, that helped write Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. He's the showrunner, creative force behind Westworld. And then he did with Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams' production company, this show called Person of Interest, that if you haven't seen it, it's a cool little, it's mostly kind of episodic, but it has kind of a meta arc, kind of the X-Men, X-Files version of serialized storytelling where about a quarter of the episodes are part of this bigger arching narrative, and then the other 75% are more kind of standalone stuff about this machine that predicts bad stuff that's happening. So it's very Big Brother in nature. Got Emerson is kind of the mentor guy that created the thing and is very mysterious as to who he is and what's going on with him. Jim Caviezel as kind of our hero using his spy action hero skills. Very cool show. Nice deep mythology. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And finally, I have the final season of Smallville on Blu-ray as well. I had the other all the other seasons on DVD, but by the time we got to the last season, there were Blu-rays. So then I have this one on Blu-ray. So it's not to say that I don't have the other seasons. I just don't have them on Blu-ray. A lot of people had given up on the show by the time it got into the final seasons, in which case they're like, I thought the last couple of the seasons were no good. And I don't think they actually feel that way. They probably just gave up on the show and just became cynical towards it, or didn't watch some of that stuff because it got really bad in season 6 and 7. And I thought with 9 and 10 actually made a real nice comeback. They should have, with the last episode or maybe the last couple episodes, done a Superman movie with Tom Welling. I mean, movie, 2-part episode that's designed as Tom Welling as Superman. If you're going to do 10 seasons of an origin story of Superman, you've got to have full payoff for that. They didn't really do that. It was very minuscule what they gave us, and that was pretty disappointing. But overall, I really dug the last 2 seasons. With that said, you have made it to the end of this video. You are the true fans, the committed people that would watch. I don't even know how long this video is, but I started filming it 6 hours ago. So there's at least 1 hour of a break in there. So I'm guessing that this video is going to be about 4.5 hours long. I don't even know I'm going to render that down or how long that'll take, but thank you guys so much for tuning in this entire time. It means the world to me that you would care what I have to say about this many things and spend this much time with me. Thank you for watching, and keep talking movies and Blu-rays too much.